flag the record time. Thank you.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Please be seated. If you've got cell phones, would you please turn them off and turn them to vibrate? I'd like to call tonight's meeting to order. Let the record reflect that the starting time of tonight's meeting will be 7:33 p.m. Madam Clerk, may I have a roll call, please?
Trustee Abraham?
Yes.
Trustee Benson? Present. Trustee Howard?
Here.
President Jones?
Here.
Trustee McGreer?
Here.
Trustee Moore? Here. Trustee Brown Marino? Here. Maybe I'll stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Item number 2, public comment.
Deborah Vines.
She's not here, but she has some people coming in.
So how do I got a request for Deborah Vines and Deborah Vines' name and she's not here?
Because she has to fill out the form and tell her who she is taking position.
Katrina Thompson? Katrina Thompson?
Good evening, Mayor Jones and trustees and community of Broadview residents.
Good evening.
A couple of things that we have going on in the Broadview Partnership is our regular garden collections, the community plots, the plots are open for registration. We still have about 10 more plots that's available. The teaching gardens will be housed over at the Beverly Center. The community gardens will be over at Schroeder Park. So those 25 plots at Schroeder are distributed for community gardens and teaching gardens will take place. All teaching gardens will take place at the Beverly Center, so the plots that were over at Plato at the Carpenter Building in April last year, those plots have been moved and will be housed at the Beverly Center with an additional 10 plots, they 4x12 plots, and then we purchased 3x6s. Also, we are going to have a Six Flags done as for the community of Broadview in July. So it'll be Saturday, July 14th, so we're looking forward to that information. This is the day that the community will come out and represent Broadview. More details is coming to follow. That's it that I have. That's all I have for Broadview.
Thank you, Ms. Thompson. Ms. Cushman?
Hi. Margaret Cushman, 422 South 16th. When I got my mail Saturday and I opened my water bill, I almost had a heart attack. And it didn't have anything to do with the raises or rates. I've been trying not to get too upset, and I know I should try and get a hold of somebody first, but it's Monday night and I work all day. So, I thought maybe there was a problem last month when my usage went from 0 to 15 units, but I was busy, so I just paid the bill and thought, okay, I'll wait until the next one comes. This time, it went to 60 units and I got a bill for $369. Now, I live in a house by myself. I go to work 5 days a week, full time. I figured there had to be some kind of an equipment failure. I'm hoping there's some kind of an equipment failure because I wasn't watering my lawn chamber February. And I figured for me to use that much water, I would have had a water faucet running all day long, 24 hours a day. So I'm requesting that somebody come check out my equipment. I would like to get a corrected bill.
Consider it done.
If I have to pay this bill, I'm going to do so under protest because there is no way I use water like that. I copied my bills. I'd like to get a bill before it's due because I know if I don't get a new one or something corrected before it's due, I'm going to have to pay that $369, which is going to put me in a very hard financial hardship. So I would appreciate something response in writing because I'm not home all day. I go to work.
All right.
And I was wondering, when Mr. Upshaw went and inspected and talked to all the people about the holes in the garages, how long it takes before you do a follow-up? Because not one of those people has done one thing.
I think David can talk to that when he gives his report.
Raccoons.
All over.
So, thank you.
But we'll be out for the reread on your water bill tomorrow. I'll make sure the Public Works gets out there. Ms. Cushman. Marquita Smith.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Marquita Smith. I reside at 1150 West 18th Street. Once again, I'd like to thank you for the video. I get to review. You know, I'm not be able to stay here all day. My first question is regarding the feasibility study. I heard your explanation as a possibility that we would get paid on the back end. I didn't clearly understand when you were stating about being paid on the back end. However, I still would like for everyone to elaborate on the way they vote, they cast their vote. $50,000 today is not a drop in the bucket, especially with our financial situations that we are facing. You indicated about the capital improvement program. You said something about we could review it on a video. Is it in a video? Is it on a video or is it in written form?
It's actually a video.
It's a video.
Yeah.
And we can request to see that video.
No, it should have been. Did you put it on the website? Well, we'll address that.
Yeah, and see, that's what I was going to say next.
DVD.
Can we possibly have that on the website?
Go ahead.
Especially for those of us that have to work 24/7 almost. And Chief Tigera, the COPS, the Community Outreach Program, can we have that on the video as well? I mean, it's a lot of us that we are working and we still like to track what's going on in our village. And that concludes my, I think that's it for the most part. Yes, that concludes my question.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Smith. Ms. Redmond?
Yes, thank you.
Good evening, everybody. I've got a big...
Good evening.
Okay. Shirley Redmond, 2246 South 24th Avenue. Two of my questions have been addressed by Marquita. We're thinking along the same, so I won't repeat. But I do want to say thank you for putting the agenda on the website. Appreciate it.
Okay.
Now, if we can get it just a few more days early, I'd be happier. But I'm glad we got the first step. So thank you. And then I'm also considering, an A and B that Marquita addressed, but I won't repeat that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Redmond. And the last one is Ms. Lyles.
Hi, I'm Ruth Lyles, 2042 South 15th Avenue, in 80 acres, Broadview. The first thing I'm concerned about, a few months ago, I think, I get a little confused at that, but I think I got one of those robocalls that said the garbage was going to be changed to Wednesdays or Thursdays or something. I got one of those calls. And now several people on my block, we're getting a little confused about, are we going back to Thursdays to put our recycle out in our garbage? And the next thing is, when do we start putting the recycle, not the recycle, the waste, yard waste to the outside? We need to know, I need to know that. Okay. Another house, 2 doors from me, the young lady just walked away from. That makes a total of 1, 2, 3, I think in my block. And then 1 down on the other block. Even though they have the old Hobson's house boarded up, they keep breaking in. and that the one next to me was Toya and Renee, you remember, Mr. Sherman?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
She's walked away from her house the last week or whatever. And so the kids are breaking in their houses. And what I'm afraid they're going to eventually start doing is going in these houses, trying to get the copper and stuff like that. So I don't know, it's really sad that these things are happening. We got, like I said, I know it's 2 on my block. There's a couple more that's for sale right up there by the school. And then one was boarded up also down there. So I'm very concerned about that. Now, I know during election time, people have their rights to vote for who they want to vote for, okay, whatever party you want to vote for. But when I decide to put my candidate sign in my yard, I want it to stay there. Now, over the weekend, I have had several people telling me they will remove the sign. That's a violation of my rights, my civil rights, and I don't like it, and if I catch somebody doing it, they're going to get a piece of my mind. So, like I said, I wish everybody well who's running tomorrow, but don't touch my signs, because that's my choice, and that's who I want to vote for. Please just don't do it. Thank you.
Ms. Lau, real quick, Ms. Lau, when was your garbage picked up prior? Was it on a Wednesday or Thursday?
I think it was, sometimes it's on Friday, sometimes it's on Thursday, so I really don't know. Because I had the recycle out there, and they didn't pick it up.
Okay, I'll check the schedule and verify with Mr. Ames.
Okay.
What day it's supposed to be on.
Yeah, because the same thing happened a couple of days. They asked me, I was out in the yard, they said, Ms. Lyons, what day are they supposed to do? You get the call and say they're going to change it.
Okay.
You know, so we really need to know.
And real quick, yard waste pickup starts on April 1st.
Okay.
A yard waste sticker must be on each bag.
Okay.
Put it out
And the stickers are now?
I don't recall the price on that, but you can call up to the village to get that price.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. And that's it for public comments, Madam Clerk.
Item number 3, consideration to approve the following minutes. There are none. Item number 4, consideration to approve the expenditures, grand total all funds, $177,676.03.
Motion to approve.
Okay, been properly motion by Trustee Morris and properly second by Trustee Abraham to approve the current bills. May I have a report from Finance?
Sure. And I guess everybody can follow along with me today, because we do have papers that were in the back. Broadview Fire Pension, $50,810.32. Broadview Public Library, $12,324.91. ComEd, $3,293.39. Edward Hancock, $15,000. Kelly Truck Center, $6,225. The Office of Phil M. Finaro, $18,040.96. The Lopez, $5,472. Michael R. Connolly, $7,037.50. Third Millennium, $5,422.73. And West Cook County Solid Waste, $6,130.07, which is a subtotal of $129,756.88, which is 73% of the bill.
Okay, comments from the board starting at the right. Trustee Abraham?
None.
Trustee Benson?
No comments.
Trustee Harvard?
No.
Greer?
None.
Morris?
None.
Ms. Brown Marina?
None.
Okay, Madam Clerk, may I take a roll call on this one?
Trustee Abraham?
Yes.
Trustee Benson?
Yes.
Trustee Hargrett?
Yes.
Trustee McGreer?
Yes.
Trustee Morris?
Yes.
Trustee Brown Marino?
Yes.
And that motion carries to pay the bills.
Item number 5, report of the village officer, Commissioner David Upshaw, building attorney.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Monthly building report for the month of February 2012. We had 21 Title 13 inspections. And just a reminder, Title 13 is the process that we go through for the sale or purchase of any property in the village of Broadview. We had 32 contractor registrations. We had 2 vacant property registrations. 2123 South 14th, 2003 South 19th. We had 5 elevator inspections. We completed the business license registration for 2012. That is final and complete. We had 12 complaints. Half of them dealt with apartment building owners. The other ones were homeowners residential dealing with garage issues as well as weeds. Ms. Lyle, I think you talked about people walking away from their homes, and I'm going to comment on that in just a few minutes. May be able to assist some of the residents or all of the residents in the village of Broadview. But currently, right now, I know that there are some events going on or will be going on in the city of Chicago in May or June, and right now I'm working with the police department, and I am creating a list of vacant properties. So that will allow the police department to be able to drive by and be aware of which properties are occupied and which properties are vacant. I'm still getting complaints regarding residents being overcharged by contractors. I can't express, again, for the 1,000th time, you need to get 3 contractor prices. You need to get 3 estimates. It's very, very important, and to find out if the contractors are competitive. We had another situation where the lady actually just got her FEMA. She got her FEMA check, and there was a gentleman that was going to charge her $20,000 to put a door on. I don't know how that makes sense. The way she explained it to me, it's a very expensive door. So please, and if you have any questions, if you're not sure, don't hesitate to call down to the building department. I'll be glad to assist you or someone on my team. Regarding campaigns, as Ms. Lyles spoke earlier about as well, campaign season is here. The Broadview Village Code, it allows political signs. They should be in your front yard. They should not be in the public parkway. And the signs are to be put out no earlier than 60 days prior to any election, and they are to be pulled up or discarded 3 days after the election. Mr. Upshaw, anyone can ask a question? No. Regarding signs in residential areas, they should be no higher than 6 feet. 2 by 3 should be the surface area. In non-residential areas, they should be 4 feet from grade. I'm sorry, they should be 9 feet from the surface area. So I've gotten calls regarding signage being too big, being in the parkway. If you see signage in the parkway, please call the building department and we will have it removed immediately. If you see signage that is not properly sized, please call the building department and we will address that issue as well. A message from Governor Pat Quinn. Preventing foreclosures is one of the most essential things that we can do to keep our community strong and our economic recovery moving forward. It's up to organizations like the Illinois families to stay in their homes. Together we can protect what we've all worked so hard for. In February, Illinois launched the Illinois Foreclosure Prevention Network, IFPN, a multi-agency initiative to put all the tools to help homeowners facing foreclosure in one place. As part of this effort, we're hosting 6 Keep Your Home Illinois events around the state beginning Saturday, March 31st, 2012 through August 2013. The event, and I have materials on the back table, the event is going to be Saturday, March 31st, 2012 from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. at Northwest High School, located at 2400 Home Avenue, Berwyn, Illinois. If you need any additional information, they have a toll-free number. That's 1-855 533-7411. Also, this was addressed to Mayor Jones. Mayor Jones encloses a flyer prepared by the Monroe Foundation for the upcoming foreclosure prevention outreach that's being held at Proviso Township. This event will explain the home purchasing process to prospective buyers, as well as offering counseling services. The event is scheduled for March 24, 2012, from 10 a.m. until 1 p.m. in the Town Hall, located at 4565 Harrison Street in Hillside. That's the Town Hall at 4565 Harrison Street in Hillside. It's open to all residents. Mr. Ralph Dunbar from the Monroe Foundation will follow up with your office in the next few days regarding your feedback. Any additional questions, feel free to call Michael A. Corbin. Lastly, as the residents come by to get permits and just come by the building department to seek information, they've been sharing some information with me, and I'd like to share it with you all as well. These are the following companies that are hiring. We've had some residents who were unemployed that are now employed. Google, Boeing, CVS, Scott Trade, Ford, and GM. And they're hiring through Manpower temp services. McDonald's, CarMax, Chase, and Sears. Mr. Mayor, that concludes my report.
Thank you, Commissioner Upshaw.
Excuse me, I have a question for Commissioner Upshaw. I personally sent you about 4, I believe, emails about oversized political signs starting February 3rd, and the most recent one was March 8th. In fact, with the March 8th email, I included a list of addresses where they were, in case you were having trouble finding them. I know in the past, with the previous administration, the building commissioner was the one who, or the building department, under the building commissioner was who enforced this with oversized signs. Is that still under your jurisdiction, or is there a reason why we didn't address all of these oversized signs throughout the village?
We'll take that as a note, Trustee Brown Moreno.
There were a couple of other things that Mr. Upshaw just said about the political signs that are not quite correct. For example, and I thought that this was addressed, I thought I heard this in the recording at the meeting, I wasn't here. The duration for political signs, that was ruled unconstitutional, and the new law took effect, the new state statute took effect January 1st, 2011. We can no longer regulate the time that someone has political signs in front of their home. So that's no longer correct. And the height for political signs is 4 feet in residential areas. So, which is something else that I had shared with Mr. Upshaw.
Is there anything else, Trustee?
No, that was it.
Thank you. Madam Clerk?
Our next village officer, Finance Director Jan Baptist, Finance Department.
Good evening. Can I stand right here? So,
Right.
or no? Is the mic over? Oh, I didn't know. Yes. Good evening.
Unless you want to come stand in the front right here. Right in the middle.
I'll stand by. Is this the mic?
That's a mic.
I did not know that. Oh, you learn something new every day. Good evening, residents, board members, Mayor Jones. Okay. Financial results for our general fund for the month of February 2012. In the month of February, the general fund generated $958,000 in revenue and expended $984,000 in expenses, ending the month with a net deficit of $26,000. February's governmental revenue sources included $486,000 in property taxes, $208,000 in sales taxes, $95,000 in utility and franchise fee, utility taxes and franchise license fees, $9,000 and $9,000 in state use taxes. The Department of Revenue collections included $45,000 collected in the building department and building permits and inspection activities, $44,000 in police department fine and towing activities, and $57,000 in fire, ambulance, and hospital billing fees. Other February revenues also included $6,000 in reimbursed workers' comp expenses and $3,000 in insurance, in liability insurance reimbursements, and $4,000 in reimbursed legal fees. In February, employee labor and benefits make up 81% of the total month spending. Contractual services included $26,000 in legal and professional service invoices. $35,000 is our monthly general liability insurance. $16,000 in various repairs and maintenance expenses, and $17,000 in vendor towing and collection vendor expenses. On a year-to-date basis, both revenues and expenses are trending slightly below the calendarized budget year. At 10 months being completed, 10 months of our 12 months or 83% completion. Revenues are at 79% of the year's collections. On a year-to-date basis, the tax revenues are at 67%. That's because the first installment of the 2011 levies, they've started to come in, and we've actually, as of Wednesday, when I issued you all that report, we had actually received $731,000 in March. So we will most likely meet our budget line on that area. Other sales, other taxes, sales and utilities, they're pretty close to budget at 78%. However, and I say this every month, the intergovernmental, specifically the income taxes, the state income taxes are below budget. The state has in its queue $274 as of March 14th that has not yet been released to the village. On a local revenue generated basis, all the departments are trending well ahead of budget. On a year-to-date basis, expenses are running 81% of our total year's budget, also slightly below annualized basis. Most of the departments are trending right around the budget area, with the two exceptions being the two exceptions that literally have been since the beginning of the year. Municipal buildings and grounds and street departments, and both because of significant repair and maintenance expenses that weren't projected in the budget.
Does that complete your report?
That completes my report.
Questions from the board, from the right, Trustee Abraham?
None.
Benson?
None right now.
Trustee Harvard?
No.
McGrath?
None.
Trustee Moore?
Good job, James.
Trustee Judy Brown Marino?
None.
Thank you very much, Ms. Finance Director.
Our next village officer, Chief Thomas Garland, our president.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
This is the report for the fire department for February 2012. During the past month, we responded to 186 emergency calls. Of those were 5 box alarm fires, 2 fire investigators box alarms. For our contract services that we provide, we did have 1 fire alarm response and 30 ambulance response to the Loyola Hospital complex, for a total of 56 for the year. 19 ambulance responses to Hines VA Hospital for a total of 36 for the year, and 1 fire, 1 ambulance response to JJ Mad for a total of 3 responses to the complex for the year. Fire Prevention Bureau, Inspector Scott Karstens, performed 126 fire inspections, 10 home fire inspections, and he did cite 40 violations with 5 special inspections that he performed. Training. Over the past month, we completed 162 hours of training on various fire and EMS subjects. We did do, trustees, you all have a copy of the report. I'll breeze through some of these. Our regular shift training, which is conducted daily, some of that was on SCBA, tools and equipment, and driver's training. Driver's training is required for us annually under NFPA 1500. So we completed the first part of that for the year. We did get two firefighters trained in juvenile fire setting program, which is a good program that we have brought to the schools, the Roosevelt and Lindop School, as far as it's a juvenile fire setters program, which they are now trained to deal with kids that may be maliciously setting fires, or what the school can do if they do come across a child that's doing those type of things. So now we have 3 members now total trained in the department to deal with those situations. So, attended various meetings throughout the area through Mavis Division 20 Chiefs and the Metro Fire Chiefs Association. Chief DeGarrett and myself attended meetings with our new grant writer, Andy Hamilton, early on in the beginning of February, giving him some projects that we're working on with the grants and some other purchasing. We attended the Breakfast of Champions at Roosevelt School, which was a breakfast that the school had put on for their honoring their fourth grade class, which had done high academic achievement, and we came and spoke to them about nutrition, exercise, kind of what our career is about. So we spent the morning with them over there back on February 17th. I attended a fire chief seminar on the NATO Summit, which was held up in Addison. The NATO Summit will be coming in May. I'm sure Chief DeGarrett will talk more on that. A couple other various meetings. Billing information, we collected $10,555.12 from paramedic billing service for ambulance services, with a net collection of that amount, $10,555.12. We do owe paramedic billing service $27.76 due to direct deposits that were made directly into our account. We billed out $18,000 to Loyola Hospital, $16,940 to Hines VA Hospital, and $750 to JJ Madden, for a total of $35,690 for the month of January. We did receive $48,065 in collections for services to Loyola, Hines, and JJ Madden. And we did receive 15 service cards from the public for services rendered. All of our services rated extremely or highly satisfied. I have a couple other things to bring up real quick. One of them being the storm season is upon us. This crazy weather we've been having already with the warmth the last couple weeks. I did put some flyers in the back table about severe weather preparedness, tornado weather, what to look for, what you can do to be prepared for it, and what you need to do if something like that strikes. So we've got some information back there. You can also go to FEMA.gov. They've got a lot of preparedness information on their website as well. I've got 2 other things. I've been talking about our Vial of Life project that we put together. We did put a flyer together on this. Mike DeCaz, our community service liaison, put this together. It's got all the information on it. If you're interested, grab a flyer in the back and then just follow directions on the flyer, and we'll get the information and the packets out to you for your home, as well as some fire safety information and what you can do to be fire safe in your home, as well as what, if you were to experience a fire in your home, some do's and don'ts on that. So those are also on the back table as well. That's all I have. Do you have any questions?
Any questions or comments from the board, starting at the right? Trustee Abraham?
No.
Trustee Benson?
No question.
Trustee Harvey?
No.
Trustee McGreer?
None.
Trustee Moore?
No.
Trustee Moreno?
No.
Thank you very much, Chief.
Our next budget officer, Chief Louis DeGarrett, Police Department.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the board, and residents.
Good evening.
The monthly report for February 2012. The Broadview Police Department's Community Outreach Program will be hosting its first Neighborhood Watch meeting on April 26th at 6:30 p.m. here in the Village Hall. We are in the process of identifying, developing a Neighborhood Watch program and we want to get the input from the residents and see how we could take it from there and implement the program. We continue discussion with our Net 17 law enforcement partners, those are the police departments in this area, to discuss the upcoming summit. Officer candidate Eric Davis is scheduled for the State Police Academy on April 1st. I believe he has passed the prelim power test last week, and I believe that the Fire and Police Commission will be submitting a letter to the board identifying that he's passed the background and all the other tests, and he'll be starting the academy April 1st. We have received interoperability portable radios from Cook County to better communicate with other statewide law enforcement agencies. We are in the process, or this is going to be going out on the web if it hasn't, and basically over the last few days the Broadview Police Department has recovered 8 items that are referred to as work bombs in the Broadview area. There were no reports of injury or property damage related to these devices at this time. The device consists of a plastic soda bottle that, when filled with certain household chemicals and sealed, will explode when it's disturbed. The explosion and the poisonous chemical released is powerful enough to cause permanent injury. If anyone finds one of these devices or suspects that they may have, do not touch the device and call the police immediately. In an effort to keep our community safe, anyone with further information regarding the origin of these devices encouraged to notify police immediately. It's all over YouTube. Kids are doing it, and whether it's being taught at the schools through the labs or what have you, it's now becoming a fad with kids. And like I've indicated, we've discovered 8 of them. Usually it's done in an open area, park district, or a street. So if you see, please call us right away. Don't go near it, just call the police. Operation Triangle. On February 24th and 25th, Broadview Police Department participated in Operation Triangle, which is a proactive guns, drugs, gangs, multi-jurisdictional enforcement mission. The agencies involved in Maywood, Bellwood, Westchester, Broadview, and the Illinois State Police. The results of the 2-day operations were 176 people were contacted, 50 citations were issued, 9 arrests for possession of cannabis, 3 arrests for possession of controlled substance, 1 DUI, 16 warrant arrests, 2 gun recoveries, and 4 canine searches. There were no shots fired called during those 2-day periods and no shooting victims. So I believe that the operation was successful. We are also reminding our officers about our loitering ordinances. It's getting hot out there. Kids are going to be out. Kids are going to be kids. And they're not going to be inside. So we've advised them of the ordinance. We've advised them to take the proper police action when necessary. As someone indicated about the signs, we arrested several folks over the weekend for tampering and or removing signs. So if you see someone taking signs, obviously tomorrow's the election, call the police. It's against the law. We will take action. Somewhere, obviously, it looks like it has started earlier than what we anticipated. We received or have received or have seen an increase in shots fired. So there's a lot of shooting calls, whether it's in Bellwood or Maywood. More importantly, Bellwood and Maywood. But if you hear any shots fired, call the police. How are we handling it? We are looking at where these calls are at, what time of the day, and we are deploying our officers to those hotspot areas. And we're going to try to attempt to do more multi-jurisdictional operations. Last month, as it relates to our comparisons of our activity. We were, for the month of February, 792 total citations compared to January, which is 755. For the felony misdemeanor village ordinance, total arrests for the month of February was 16 compared to 23 in January. As the Director of Finance indicated, for the month of February, we brought in $44,000. For January, we brought in $42,000. During the month of February, members of the Broadview Police Department responded to 1,587 calls as compared to 1,559 calls in January. These calls are going to increase. 5 arrest warrants were served for other law enforcement agencies. 2 sex offenders and 1 youth offender resided in Broadview were processed. An unannounced home inspection of a sex offender was also made. 3 individuals were fingerprinted for employment reasons and another party printed for access and review. That concludes my report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Chief Tegura. Questions from the board, starting at the right, Trustee Abraham.
No.
Trustee Benson.
You actually answered my question regarding were they caught and what charges were they. Thank you.
Trustee Harvey.
We talked about this the other day, Chief, and I just want to clarify it for the residents and the rest of the board. The truck enforcement officer is still out and about, but we haven't received any repayment yet of the fines that were issued in January?
That is correct. That I know of. That goes directly to the finance department.
Okay.
That's it, Trustee Harvey?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Trustee McGrath.
Chief, how you doing? What was the name of that bond that you mentioned? Was it a special name of the?
The Works bond.
Works?
Works. It's, you tube it and you seal it.
Thank you.
Trustee Morris?
No.
Trustee Brown Moreno?
Yes, I have a couple questions about the Works bond, and I will go check it out on YouTube to see what they say, or what they show. You said there were 8 of them that were found in the village of Broadview? Were they all found together in one place, or were these 8 separate scattered incidents, or?
One was found in one place, or one area, and the other 4 were found in a block area.
And as you said, you know, people should be aware of what, you know, if they see something like this. For those who don't have time to go check YouTube or just in general, could you describe, are they using like soda containers or water bottles, or is it more like a glass jar? Is there something that we should be looking for? Is there any kind of a fuse to it?
I didn't see it. I didn't see YouTube. Man, people who covered the devices.
They were plastic water bottles. And what they do is they stuff tinfoil in the plastic water bottles, and they put a Drano in a balloon and squeeze it up top so that when the bottle is shaken, the balloon is ruptured by the tinfoil, you get a chemical reaction in the balloon. So all the ones that we found were actually in water bottles like that.
Let me also, I'm sorry to interrupt you. The other notification we made was we also notified the Cook County Department of Homeland Security. Not that this is a terrorist issue, not that this is anything to do with any type of anarchist groups, but we wanted to make sure that the other law enforcement agencies in Cook County or in the state of Illinois do know that we are experiencing this kind of incidents in our town. We also are sending it to the other areas, our Net 17 law enforcement agencies. So in the event they get something, or if there's a pattern, we will work together on it.
And that was my next question. My final one is, are any of the other surrounding communities finding things?
Don't know, but that was sent out today.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure. This happened over the weekend, so we acted upon it today. Any other?
Thank you, Chief. Take care.
Our next village officer, Zach Ames, MFA Construction, Public Works Department.
Good evening, Mayor, Board, residents. Add one other piece to that. They sound like M80s going on. So you can easily assume that kids are setting off fireworks, and in fact they are exploding explosive bombs. So Mayor, if it's so pleases the board, what we'd like to do is, along with the village engineers, kind of touch bases on the 5-year capital improvement that the board will vote on tonight, and basically just inform the residents how we got to determine certain things. But before I do that, Ms. Cushman, typically, if in fact the resident incurs unordinary water bill, usage is high. What happens is it's flagged within the building department. I know Ms. Donna Ball and those women who work with her real good about noticing any abnormalities as it relates to water bills. If in fact it's not caught at that end, the residents are encouraged to come in and solicit for a reread. Basically, they call the building and the water department, say that I've got a $300 and some dollar water bill in my normal consumption, puts me about 50. At that point, they'll call down the Public Works. We'll call you and schedule a time for a reread. A lot of the times what we're finding that there's some discrepancies within the meter inside the house and outside the house for a lot of different reasons. We've had people use their utility closet as a storage closet and slam things up against the wire, disconnected. We've had some individuals literally disconnecting water meters. We've had some malfunctioned water meters. But that being said, we cannot make a determination unless we come into your home. And obviously, that is protocol. So you make an appointment with Public Works, we come in and we try and determine whether or not there's anything afoot as it relates to the village's responsibility. What we will also encourage you to do is check any obvious leaks. You know, and everybody says, oh, well, my toilet is fine, my sinks don't drip, or whatever the case might be, but you'd be surprised a dripping faucet, what it can do to your water bill. So I would encourage you, if you haven't, to most certainly call the building department and have them put in for a reread at your address. Ms. Lyles, I do know that Public Works did not put out a robocall as it relates to the changing of any garbage collection. I live 2 blocks from me. The only time the garbage is changed in terms of its normal collection on Thursday is if there's a holiday that occurs in the week. And everyone knows that it typically puts the village's collection back a day. So I do know that we have had some issues as it relates to totals being put out before they're actually to be picked up within 24 hours and then removed several days later. So in this upcoming newsletter, we have addressed that, trying to remind the residents there is an ordinance, and you're not to place your cans out any earlier than 6 p.m. prior to the night before, and remove them no later than 7 p.m. the day of the collection. So maybe that was something that you observed. I have no idea, but I know that Public Works didn't put out any robocall as it relates to the change in collections. So that being said, capital improvement. Mayor Jones directed Public Works along with village engineers to provide the village board a comprehensive review of our water, sewer, and pavement conditions for the purpose of identifying critical needs and selecting the location of improvements for a 5-year capital improvement plan. Some of the criteria for the selection was a 2011 street survey. I believe the Board of Trustees, you are in receipt of that. But for those of you, as a matter of fact, may have been in the audience a couple months ago, basically it's a book that was put together by the engineers, giving us a detailed breakdown of the conditions of our streets. It was rated in I believe in 5 stages. Red obviously being something of immediate address, blue, yellow, yada, 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 all the way down to green, meaning that we had some recent work done to it. And I think the only area in Broadview that qualified was Gardner Road, and obviously the state highways, Roosevelt, 17th, Cermak. Outside of that, most of Broadview's pavement conditions were either red or blue. Blue gives us probably about a 5-year window before, we were at that critical stage of needing addressed. And some of you know, just living in your blocks, you Miss Cushman, your blocks your streets are pretty bad condition. So that being said, we also reviewed the water main break history for the past 3 years. And that's basically the only data that I had, in addition to the data or the historical data that the village engineers retained in their offices for water mains that had been replaced in the last 30 years. I believe you didn't have anything prior to 30 years. So, and it's funny because those water mains that were replaced within the last 30 years, we hadn't had any breaks on them. But everywhere else, if you look,
yeah, I can break that up.
You didn't break it down. Okay. All right. Well, basically, we took a map, kind of like this, and of course, from our receipts, we stuck pins in areas that we had the water main breaks. And what we were hoping for, obviously, was to identify one area that we could address. But the breaks occurred all over the village of Broadview, from the industrial area, clear down to the harvester, and so forth and so on. So we had to go back and rethink some things. I know that there was a couple different approaches. What we wanted to do, obviously, was resurface the streets. The cost for resurfacing the street is not as costly as replacing a water main and doing sewer replacements or improvements. The age of the water infrastructure was most certainly taken into consideration once again with information from Hancock Engineering. And we also had to look at operational issues for the system pressure and water quality. Basically, we've been working with our pump station on 10th Avenue to see exactly what kind of reads they had during certain breaks. Obviously on a 4-inch water main, a break is not going to be as severe or as disruptive as a break on a 12-inch main, which we experienced right out here in front of Village Hall. I think it was the last one, the winter before the one we just went through. The scope of work to be performed will involve the installation of new 8-inch water mains within the limits of the project, installation of new fire hydrants, transferring of all existing water services to the new main, abandonment of the existing main, repairs to the sewer system is necessary as a result of televising of the sewers, and restoration. The amount of restoration will be dependent on the location of the new main and the condition of the existing pavement, obviously. Cost estimate varies at this time. When I say varies, we have cost estimates prepared that are based upon certain assumptions and will be more accurate once the design is substantially complete. The intent is that the preliminary estimates are conservative and that the possible addition of work can be added in years 4 or 5, depending on how good of pricing we have that comes in, obviously, during the bid process, during the sealed bid process. This was no easy feat. Obviously, you throw a dart at a board and basically you can start improvements anywhere within the village of Broadview because we have those needs. However, I believe in year 1, the selection was some streets over the Beverly area fields. These streets right here, obviously, those individuals that live in that area know the condition of the streets, but more so the water mains and the age of the water mains and the sewers dictated that we address that area. We also wanted to address the areas around Lindop School. We had to kind of reevaluate that, obviously, because of the start of construction, the scheduled start of construction being in August. Sometime there around, and that would be right during the school year. So what we did was we reallocated, if nothing else, the first years to 16th Avenue, 16th from 14th Street, 16th Street to 14th Street, and the side street of 15th. I believe that was year 1, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
Yes.
And right, okay. And of course the board, you all are privy to the subsequent years following year one. However, I will caution to say that we are being flexible with that. Obviously, if we identify some weak water mains in a particular area, we're probably going to shift the focus to that area. If we find that for whatever reason, while we're out televising and cleaning the sewer lines, that we have a situation that needs to be addressed sooner than later, that's the rationale behind it. Jim, is there anything else that I can add to that?
You know, those are the 5 years there, size of the program. You know, we based the 5-year program on an $8 to $10 million bond sale. That was the direction we were given. And the preliminary cost for those come up to about $10 million. That was they were coming under there.
So this is an attempt to, nothing else, address a situation that's long overdue. And obviously, you know, $10 million doesn't get you a whole lot of money nowadays, but it is most certainly a start. And I think if I can be so bold, you know, I was in a meeting with you, Mayor, as he directed the financial people to use common sense. You know, the thought wasn't trying to leverage the village out for past transgressions, but to be more practical and realistic in our approach with what we had at hand. That being said, obviously there's going to be some questions for the finance director and Mr. Coyne, I believe is the individual that's slated for discussion as it relates to underwriting the bond. Is there any questions with the board at this time? I'll entertain.
Well, first of all, I don't have any questions at this time, but I'll take it to the board, starting with Trustee Abraham.
No.
Trustee Benson.
We just said our class ratings for the streets was about 1, 2.
Sorry, I can't hear you.
Our class ratings for the streets.
Class ratings on the streets.
5.
Oh, they're 5?
Right.
Oh, so they're
right. As a matter of fact,
they're in good condition? They said 5 is, wait.
5 is in good condition.
5 is good condition, 1 is poor condition,
Right,
correct?
that's right. That's
Okay,
right.
okay.
And as you can see from this map, the only 5 that we have is Gardner Road. So this is what we were looking
So
at.
that's the only one that's in good condition?
Right.
That and 14 road surface less than
Well, you just recently got resurfaced.
14 roads.
Okay.
Which is, let me also
The
add
80 acres not
that the
included.
only area that was not considered was 80 acres was allowed. Why? Because 80 acres qualifies for CDBG money. So we have alley reconstructs over there. We've had new water mains put in on some of the blocks. And most certainly we've got the money allocated over the next couple of years to do street resurfacing in and around the school. So.
Trustee Harvey? Oh, I'm sorry. You still going to here?
Sorry. The only other question was the between 8 and 10 million.
Yes.
Some of this is saying well over that. So are we going with 10 million as a cap? You looking at me? That's hard to say, huh?
That would be a finance question, depending on the bond negotiating how much is available.
Right, that's what I thought. No, there's 10 million there, but right here is a difference. Yeah. All right, I'll stop.
Is that it, Trustee Benson?
Yes.
Trustee Harvey?
No.
No questions? Trustee McGrail?
No.
Trustee Morris? No. Trustee Brown?
Well, actually, I didn't receive this material until 6 o'clock last night, and I didn't even realize that I had the email until this afternoon. So I'm not prepared to ask questions right now, because there's a lot of material here to look over.
Okay. Well, thank you. I don't have any questions. I'll be talking about it as we're going to be going through the agenda. I will just make a couple of comments. We started this process because we know we have a crumbling infrastructure within the village of Broadview that's some 80 to 90 years old. I tasked the village engineers and public works with actually identifying where we should start, where we should go second, third, fourth. And then I directed them to have a conversation with finance about the entire project. I attended the meetings with them, And when it was brought to me, it was a $25 million project, which was a far-reaching project and far exceeded what we were able to do. And I directed them in the meeting to pare it back to, well, first I inquired, what are we really able to do reasonably without having an impact on the taxpayers? And reasonably it came out to somewhere between 8 and 10 million, 7 to $10 million. So I directed them to go back to the drawing board and come back with a better plan that would be somewhere between 8 and $10 million. Something that's doable, something that's reasonable, and something that would actually enhance the quality of life in the areas that are having some problems. With that being said, they came back with the 5-year plan that they have before you today. We have Mr. Coyne here, and ultimately, at the end of the day, depending upon what we would be able to bond out, will determine the scope of the project that we'll be able to do. So if the bond is $8 million, then the project cannot be more than the $8 million. It's not that we're capped at $10 million or anything. It's just whatever the bond market is going to allow us to be able to do. And I believe Mr. Coyne will be able to actually speak to that when the presentation comes up.
Okay.
So because this is a live document here, and because it's a live plan, and they built flexibility into it by going to different parts of town, it's very easy for us to take a particular sector or section of this and say, okay, since we don't have enough money to do that, then we'll do all of that but this. Or we'll do this and that, but we can't do this. So instead of having just one big, huge project, you know, like I said, you can't eat the whole elephant in one bite. You got to eat it, you know, in sections. So it's set up so that depending upon how much money we can get through this bond issue, that we can actually get some infrastructure repairs and replacements, not repairs, replacements done over the next 5 years in various areas of town. And once that's done, when we get to years 4 and 5, we'll go back and revisit it. We'll take a look at where we're at, and we may, you know, go back to the drawing board and do something a little different. So that's where we are. You know, I don't want you all to be alarmed. We have absolutely no intention on having any impact on your property taxes or anything like that, which is why we've scaled it back to the $8 or $10 million situation. And that's all I got on it. Thank you, Director Ames. If you've got anything left in your report.
One thing that I will mention on that is the yard waste collection, I believe there was a question asked. And the trustee McGree is correct. It does begin April 1st. However, because of the weather, obviously people have gotten a jump start in cleaning up their yards and so forth. And so Public Works is out picking up the yard waste bags that the proper sticker is on. So we've already begun that program.
What day?
Right. So they're out and about, and one of the first things that they do is sweep the neighborhoods. The spring cleanup. Let me remind everyone that spring cleanup is the first Saturday of May. That information will be posted in the newsletter and also on the website. But if you have any questions in terms of what you can actually set up, don't hesitate to call Public Works. That's it,
Okay. Thank you very much. Madam Clerk.
Communication. We have none. Item number 7. Unfinished business. 7A, consideration of an ordinance approving an intergovernmental agreement concerning the sharing of police service personnel, equipment, and resources through multi-jurisdictional drug and gang task force for the village of Broadview, County of Cook, State of Illinois.
I make a motion to approve.
Second.
It's been properly motion by Trustee Hargrave and properly second by Trustee Abraham to approve this agenda item. Do I have any comments or questions from the board? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries.
Item number 8A, consideration of an ordinance authorizing and approving the execution of an agreement for the creation of a feasibility study regarding implementation of aerobatic digestive technology for the village of Broadview, County of Cook, State of Illinois.
Is there a motion? Okay, this agenda item is going to fail for lack of a motion.
Item number 8B, consideration of an ordinance approving the agreement by and between the Village of Broadview and Hutchinson, Shockey, Early and Company to provide underwriting services for the Village of Broadview in connection with the sale of water and sewer, revenue taxable and tax exempt bonds for the Village of Broadview, County of Cook, State of Illinois.
Actually, I make a motion that we suspend the regular board meeting to discuss the capital improvement, which is item 8D.
Second.
Okay, it's been a motion to suspend at this point to go to item, which one?
8D.
D?
Yes.
D as in dog.
D as in
It's been
dog.
motioned by trustee Hargreaves and second by trustee Benson to bypass B and C and go on down to item D. Do I have any questions or comments regarding that motion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, we will be going down to item D to have a discussion about this particular agenda item first.
So noted. Item number D, consideration of an ordinance authorizing and approving a plan for the 2012 capital improvement program for the Village of Broadview, County of Cook, State of Illinois.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, it's been probably motioned by trustee McGrath and probably second by trustee Hargreaves to approve this agenda item, which is a capital improvement plan that was just talked about just prior to with the Public Works Director over here. Questions from the board or comments from the board, starting at the right. Trustee Abraham?
None.
Trustee Benson?
I just asked them.
Okay. Trustee Hargreaves? Well, you got this on the agenda right now. Trustee Hargreaves?
I wanted to know if we could actually have the engineer to explain it completely to the audience, since they're not privy to all the information that we're privy to.
Okay. Hang on, Mr. Engineer. Let me get to the rest of them. We know that we want you to give a comment or presentation. Trustee McGrath?
None.
None? Trustee Morris?
Yeah, that's what I...
Okay. Ron Marino? Oh, well, that's right. You didn't get the stuff until late. Unless you do have a question.
Well, actually, what I would like to suggest, I very much like the idea of discussing the capital projects plan, but I would suggest that this would be better done in a committee setting.
You've got a motion on the floor, trustee.
Right, but you asked my comments about the motion.
Okay.
And that's why I'm saying I would prefer, I think we would be better served to be able to do it in a committee setting. And I say that for a couple of reasons, primarily because I personally would like to be better prepared for the discussion and have a chance to really go over this material. So I personally, as I said before, don't feel that I've had an opportunity to really prepare myself for a discussion like this, and it's a discussion that's not, that I believe we really, really do need to have.
Okay. Thank you, Trustee Brown Moreno. It was, the whole project was discussed in a committee forum with several members present. Mr. Gomez, when you give your presentation as to the scope of the project and the things that we're going to be doing, would you please let her know all the people that were involved with the discussions about this, that we did have several meetings on it, and you know how we got to where we are today. Village Engineer Jim Gomez, please.
Thank you. The first thing that was passed out was based on the village-wide pavement survey and study. This now is the 5-year program that was put together, broken down by color-coded 5-year. I'll have there'll be a large exhibit up there for the audience to see as well. As the mayor discussed, there have been several meetings now discussing this. If you want to put it on the board, I don't know. Put it on the board.
Yeah, they can see it there in the middle.
Mr. Director, as I was starting to say, that we've had several meetings. The first meeting was based after the overall study was done, and we rated and ranked the condition of all the streets in the village. We went through and ranked them all in the 5 categories that were there. After that was presented and it was looked over by Representative Director Ames, then we had a meeting with Director Ames, the Finance Director, and Kelly Zabinski, a financial person here to discuss the findings from the study and how much it would cost to review and do all the streets, and talk about possible funding sources to do a capital improvement program for the village. Based out of that first meeting, it was determined that the best source of revenue for funding this would be out of the water and sewer fund. The condition of that fund was such that it could do some capital improvements out of that. So what we did is, after that, I went back and took the conditions of the water main break history that we've had over the last several years, from Director Ames, kind of did that with an overlay over the condition of the streets and other issues there to try to determine what streets would be the priorities for being done. When we concentrated on the overall report about the streets that were in the worst condition, either one or two. One of the conditions that we, after that, as you can see, the worst streets were somewhere down here in the residential area. You had some industrial streets and another industrial street here, but these were your worst residential streets. And then the blues are the next worst condition. There's concentration in this area over here, but kind of spread out throughout the village. So we took that and we kind of combined that with other, like Director Ames talked about, with the operational problems with the village's water and sewer system, and identifying the programs in the years that we could. Then we came back, and as the mayor had said in the next meeting we had, and the mayor was in on this, and they brought in another financial person, and the attorney was there. And based on the first meeting, they thought that that's where the number of the 25 million came out, which was like the max that the village could, it was considered that they could bond. So we kind of put a program together based on a $25 million bond issue. We sat down with the mayor and all the purple again, and the mayor, kind of, like I said, scaled it back, talked to them, what can we handle with existing rates the way they are now. That's where the $8 to $10 million price tag came out of. So then we took that after discussions there, and directions were also to concentrate on the residential area as part of this first phase of capital improvement program. We came back, reevaluated, and that's how we came up with the 5-year program for the streets that we've been selected. Year 1 through 5, they're color coded here as well. As we talked about going down here in the Beverly area, these streets, and then 16th Avenue over here. Right now, the only year that we want to etch and stone right now is year 1, because we need to get going so we can get the plan and specifications and bidding documents and get going, schedule it, put together, so that we can get out the bid and start construction. But this time frame and how, when we're getting started, we were talking about construction starting sometime in August. Looking at the size to see how much work can be done in that period before the end of the construction season. That's where we came up with these streets and these programs, and that's how year 1. And that's the only year right now that we're committing to of what streets to be done. This sets out the program and the intent to look at what we want to do over the 5 years, but right now, every year we're going to reevaluate this. This is the first year we had to get started with. And so that's the first year we can vote, and later on there's an agreement on there for our services related to this year 1 only. The intent will be every year we reevaluate, come up with a program for year 2, do another agreement for that year. On an ongoing basis for each year of the capital improvement, depending on the streets and the size. That's it. We did try to spread the work around. There were other issues, like I said, working around the school. That's why we couldn't get that. This street is terrible, right in front of the school there. But we couldn't get that this year because of the start season we had. So the idea was to put that in next year's program, schedule it, such that the contractor will start June, middle of June, and be done by 1st of August. In and out of there, so we're not affecting the students, we get the summer break, and to do that would be ideal, plenty of time to get that work done. Other issues that we looked at were there's going to be a new pump station put up on 10th Avenue with the water commission's going to be putting up. Once that's done and approved, what we need to do is replace this water main on 10th Avenue to boost the pressure and operations of the system, of the village system. It's a 6-inch now. We might up into an 8-inch, provide better pressure to the system. But we want to wait till that improvement is done and functional and the new station's operational. They're going to tear the street up a little bit. We'll come back, replace the water main from the station going south and fix the street. We're 80 acres right now has been excluded because it is CDBG eligible. Sometime in the next year or so, the new census data will be coming out and be used, and if things change, you know, obviously that's one of the reasons the plan is kind of fluid. Is if this area is no longer eligible for CBD, then obviously we'd have to consider some stuff up there.
Or if it expands.
If the new area becomes, kind of move it around for that purposes. That's the highlights, I think, of it.
I think that's pretty much everything. Does anyone have any questions for the village engineer? Trustee Abraham?
No, I don't.
Trustee Benson?
I'm going to ask. Okay,
Go
so
ahead.
I'm looking at the two maps.
Yes.
And I'm seeing our condition of the street versus what we can actually do, which is, looks like little.
Yes.
How much will this help how much will this decrease us having to repair water main breaks?
You get, I mean, it will significantly reduce the amount of breaks that we have, because these are the areas we're concentrating on. They have the highest number of breaks we're concentrating.
In year one?
But in year 1 and 2.
Okay.
Actually, all the years, but year 1 and 2 are getting the ones with the most. Like the director said, unfortunately, you don't have a real tight concentration.
Right.
So, I mean, what we do is but the thing is, as you're going along, some of those mains that don't have any brakes on them, in a year or two, they just start popping. Sometimes it happens, once one break happens, you're going to get a series of them, because it's stressing the main a little bit more, and once one breaks. So it's a very fluid situation, and no pun intended, this is why, but it does change all the time. But it definitely will reduce you should reduce your water main breakdowns. But your system, the rest of your system is still old, so it's not, you know, it's not.
It's still what?
It's very old, your system, but you're not alone. I mean, communities all around here are all in the same situation. But starting this systematic approach of doing this will get you going in the right direction, so that you'll get your oldest mains and you'll start improving your situation as you go on. We're also going to be looking at sewer as well.
All right.
Is that it, Trustee Benson?
Yes.
Trustee Harvey?
I think I've met with Director Ames in regards to the capital improvement program, and we've spoke on it a couple of times. So I'm going to say that I really don't have any questions for the program.
For the program. Okay. Trustee McGrath?
None.
Trustee Moore?
I don't have any questions.
Okay. And Trustee Marino?
Well, first of all, Mr. Gumas, you said that the first meeting was shortly after the street study was done, correct? And that was with you, Mr. Ames, Ms. Baptiste, and Kelly Zavinsky?
Yes.
Okay. And that would have been around last November?
I believe so.
Okay. You said that there were several meetings. I heard you talk about, there were two then that included Mayor Jones and the attorney and the finance person.
There were three altogether.
Three that included those people. I remember when you had told me that the street survey was complete. I had tried to get a copy of that street survey at the time. I think one of my questions is, first of all, as I said, I received the email with these attachments yesterday. It arrived yesterday at 6 o'clock. Now, Trustee Harvard just said that she's met with and spoken with Mr. Ames about this. The email I'm seeing has all of the other board members and department heads and what have you receiving this. Were these meetings since 6 o'clock yesterday, or have other board members been privy to this information long before me?
Are you asking the question of Mr. Gumas because you should be directing your questions to his presentation? Mr. Gumas gave a presentation. I opened up the floor so that you could ask him questions about the presentation.
So we will continue a discussion after beyond Mr. Gumas' presentation.
let's keep the discussion relative to the presentation for the time being.
Okay, Mr. Gumas, when you and I met last October, one of the things that I had discussed with you, from my research, it seemed to me that what I had brought to you and brought up as part of our discussion was the need to get a good handle on the condition of our sewers, and especially related to the flooding and flooding in certain areas. At the time, we talked about the possibility of having our sewers jetted and televised in order to determine that. In this capital projects plan and in this $8 to $10 million budget, was that addressed, the idea of televising, jetting and televising the sewers?
The sewers on all these streets will be jetted and televised.
On which streets? Just the streets that are...
Within the 5-year program, yes, those will definitely be cleaned and televised.
So basically, those streets that are marked in red are the ones that we would be jetting and televising this, the first year?
Yeah, so maybe even, I suggested possibly doing year 2 as well, just to get a better price just because of the scope of the work. And then we will have a better handle of what's on those streets going forward.
And the only thing that we've done so far in order to determine, in terms of ranking the need, is looking at the history of water main breaks.
Yeah, and the condition of the roads.
That's all for Mr. Gumas.
Thank you. I have no questions for you, Jim. I was privy to the information. I need the board to make a note that we suspended the board meeting to skip down to D because items B and C on the agenda are correlated to item D. And item D must be addressed before we even get to item B and C. If you read the items B and C, you can see how they tie into item D. It's just chronologically they were just put in the wrong order. That's all. So if I have no other questions from the board for Mr. Gumas, I'll entertain a roll call on this one, Ms. Maxine.
Trustee Abraham?
Point of order. I thought that what we were discussing was the capital improvement program and not just the engineer's input to this. I still have my question about whether the other board members have been privy to this information and for how long. I mean, is this something that the rest of the board has had the ability to review and research, or did they all just get this yesterday at 6 o'clock as well?
Ma'am, I couldn't tell you what time anybody got the information. I hear that you got it at 6 o'clock on yesterday by your admission. I don't know when everybody else got their information. I was involved in the meeting, so I was going on along with the meetings as they were going on. So I've known about it all along. I was in the middle of the process.
Now,
You're not here to vote on whether the other trustees when and where they received the information. You've got a consideration of an ordinance in front of you. There's a motion on the floor. And the ordinance is simply to approve the plan. That's what the motion is right now, to approve a plan for a 2012 capital improvement program. You either want to repair the streets and the sewer systems and the water mains within the village of Broadview, or you don't.
no.
It's just that, well, this is what's on the floor right now. What's in front of you right now is a motion to consider item D. Item D is clearly, and I'll read it for you, consideration of an ordinance authorizing and approving a plan for the 2012 capital improvement program for the village of Broadview, county of Cook, state of Illinois. And it's merely a program to repair the streets, the water mains, and the sewer systems. And there is a motion on the floor. Questions about other things that are not part of item D are inappropriate.
But I would contend that my questions do pertain to item D. And I would also take challenge with your statement that not authorizing this capital projects plan in this form at this moment is not saying that we don't want to improve the streets.
Okay, so noted. Is there anything else, Trustee Brown Marino?
Yes, and as chairman of the Water, Drainage, and Health Committee and a member of the Streets and Sidewalks Committee, I would very much like to ask the rest of the board to allow me time to actually review this material and meet with the engineer, whoever I would have questions of, and take this up at another time.
Well, once again, there is a motion that's been properly motioned and properly seconded on the floor. The action will be relative to the motion. Is there anything else? Roll call, please, Madam Clerk.
Trustee Abraham?
Yes.
Trustee Benson?
Yes.
Trustee Hybrid?
Yes.
Trustee McGreer?
Yes.
Trustee Morris?
No.
Trustee Brown Marino?
Absolutely not.
Okay, and the motion carries 4-2.
Item number 8B, consideration of an ordinance.
Hold on one second. I need a motion to,
I make a motion to reconvene the regularly scheduled board meeting.
okay, properly motion by Trustee Hybrid, properly seconded by Trustee McGreer. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, Madam Clerk.
Item number 8B, consideration of an ordinance approving agreement by and between the Village of Broadview and Hutchinson, Shockey, Irving, and Company to provide underwriting services for the Village of Broadview in connection with the sale of water and sewer revenue, taxable and tax-exempt bonds for the Village of Broadview, County of Cook, State of Illinois.
Motion to approve.
Okay, there's a
What is going on back there?
excuse me.
What? Is that for everybody?
Okay, Trustee McGreer has made a motion to approve item B. Is there a second?
Oh.
Second.
Okay. It's been properly motioned by Trustee McGreer and properly seconded by Trustee Abraham to consider an ordinance to approve an agreement between the village and Hutchinson and Shockley and Early and Company to provide underwriting services. In order for us to talk about it, it had to be properly motioned. We do have a representative here. They can talk about it. And with that being said, prior to you all making a decision, I'll have Mr. Coyne step in front of you and explain who he is, what this particular ordinance is about, and what he proposes to do for the Village of Broadview as it relates to the bonding issue. Mr. Coyne, please let them know who you are, give them a little history on you, so that proper introduction.
I've worked on governmental financial problems since 1969. I worked in Chicago, Springfield, and throughout the suburbs, and as far as the state. And we try to work with issuers to figure out what their program ought to be, and then once they get the program figured out, then we try to move forward and get them the best possible rating, best possible bond insurance consideration, and then we find investors for their particular securities.
Carry on. In this particular case.
In this particular case, we put together a proposal trying to reflect options that would occur, that we still are trying to figure out the size. We're still trying to figure out what kind of rate coverage we're going to have. These are different than general obligation bonds. Complexity of your situation is, in my mind, simpler if we use a straight revenue bond approach rather than an obligation bond approach. But all the aspects of the government's finances will affect how the rating people look at your proposed transaction. The new regulations that the Congress has put together requires us to get an explicit go-ahead before we can actually do a whole lot of work once we get the work done with the rating agencies and the lawyers, then we come back to the board and say, this is what we want to do in terms of settlement bonds, this is the expected interest rate, do you authorize this sale to occur? So this, all this does is just allow us to move forward. It doesn't really commit the board to anything at this point.
Other than to enter into discussions to...
Other than making us, under the new regulations, able to act on your behalf, talk on your behalf. But we really can't move forward into your legal position. In order to do a water sewer revenue bond issue, you have to pass another ordinance that sets up a publication so people know what's going on. And then when a couple weeks past that, you can move forward with actually offering a bond resolution full of covenants and dollar amounts and limits and par amount, proceeds amount.
Would you explain for the board how a water bond works? How does it function? You know, how does this work?
Okay.
The mechanics of it.
Mechanically, you take the fees and charges from the users. You pay the cost of supplying the water. You pay the cost of the employee. You pay the cost of the repair. And then what's left over is needed to cover the debt service associated with your proposed issue. There's some challenges with your proposed issue because you have 20% of the water used by 2 users. So that makes certain people in the financial community nervous. So that's one of the challenges we will have to overcome putting this together. But basically, you have to make sure that you can sustain your borrowing with the existing set of rate arrangements and pay your bills as well and pay that debt service, whether it's for 20 years, 25 years, or whatever period you decide on.
Does it require us to increase water rates? Is it going to impact the taxpayers? You know, what exactly is going to happen?
It all depends on how much you're going to borrow, whether it will ultimately affect the ratepayers.
Which was a discussion that we had when I told you guys to scale it back so that it wouldn't impact the taxpayers. But
we you know, lower scale, you can do less work and have less impact.
Right.
You know, bigger scale, bigger impact.
On all ends. Bigger impact in the village, but plus a bigger impact to the taxpayers.
Right.
Explain for the board your engagement.
It's not the taxpayer, it's the ratepayers.
The ratepayers.
Which is not exactly the same.
Not exactly the same.
Because you don't have any homestead exemptions on water that allow less valuable properties to pay less property taxes. You don't have that same kind of situation in the water system.
Right. So they're paying for the water. They're paying for this.
Paying for this.
That's right. Okay.
And you know, a lot of your usage is by commercial and industrial companies.
Correct. Explain.
20% is by 2 companies.
Correct.
How many percent did you say?
20% is by 2 companies.
20% is by 2 companies. So 2 companies pay for 20% of all water expenses. And then there's other commercial users that pay another, I don't know, 10 to 20% more. So only half is by, or probably less by residential users.
Okay.
And what did you say about homestead on the water?
No, when you get your property tax,
right?
You have a homestead exemption, it's like $7,000 or $8,000.
Right.
Which means if your assessed valuation is $8,000, you get a homestead exemption, your bill is 0. With a revenue bond, there's no functional equivalent to that. There's no free water service.
I have a question. The length of time you had mentioned about the length of going from 20 to 25 years, what determines that, or how much of a difference?
Well, if the interest rates and the amount that you need go up a little, and you don't want to change the rates, then you go out further, pay more interest, a little more expensive that way, but then you keep the rating increase impact down. And it's sort of like a mortgage, you know, you want to have a 20-year, you want to have a 30-year. You know, if you have a 20-year, you pay less, 30-year, you pay more in the end, but less every year. range. But you really can't finalize rates until you get your structure finalized, until you're legally postured to move forward. And then you'll be presented with, this is where it's going to be. You authorize people to sign off on finalization of the rates. But you can't do that until you actually have, another ordinance come here that says we're starting the process. But in order to sort of lay out the work, the new federal rules with respect to how underwriters and bond sales occur, you need to authorize us to begin the process. And there's no payment unless we have a finished bond issue.
Yeah, that was that's a good segue to my next question. I want you to explain your engagement letter to them and the method of payment for your services.
The engagement letter just says we will be your underwriter and we'll do all these tasks on the second page. And if there's, on the third page it says if there's no bond issue, there's no fee. And our services are different than water services. And we figured out that if we have a really challenging credit that has a low bond rating, we should get paid more, but if the bond issue gets bigger, we should get paid less.
So that's the sliding scale?
The sliding scale.
Okay.
And if you put, if you wrote into your bond document that we were going to have lots of extra money compared to your debt requirement, and that's a really easy bond issue to sell, but it also puts a lot of pressure on rates. So there's these trade-offs going back and forth that the board will readdress when we come back with this. Now that we're legally postured, and we've talked to the rating people, we've talked to bond insurance people, and we have these kinds of commitments in your bond resolution, then this is the resulting cost, and these are the proceeds.
You had mentioned about like additional fees, I believe it was. So if we're looking at like a $10 million project, how much room do we have to allow? Because you said something about additional fees.
In all the numbers that we've done, we included that all.
Okay. So we're not going to be asking for 11. We're looking at like for 10.
Well, to get 10, you need to sort of borrow 11 because what you need is a debt service reserve fund, which is unique to revenue bonds as opposed to general obligation bonds, because IRS considers debt service reserves with general obligation bonds superfluous. So they don't want people to borrow money on tax-exempt rates to just sit at the bank and guarantee that you're going to pay your payments. But with respect to revenue bonds, the IRS allows a debt service reserve that's 10% of the proceeds or maximum debt service, whichever is real, lesser. So that's one of the considerations that you need to have in addition to the proceeds, because that will facilitate your access to the market. The stronger the reserve fund, the lower the interest rate is, the lower the fees are for me.
So what would you get? If it was $11 million, how much would you get?
Well, we have, if it's $11 million and you're A3, or if it's $11 million and you're double A3.
Give me more.
What was that? Wait, hold on.
Okay. If you're one of these.
Actually, I do have one of those, but my question regarding the fee matrix is...
Have you answered, has he answered your question yet, Mr. Moore?
I was just going to help him.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, we have that.
What is that? Which one's that?
The fee matrix.
The fee matrix,
Okay.
Is it this one?
So if you're doing 20-year bonds,
do I have the right one?
And you're at this category, and we charge 2.25%. And when this rating goes up, then it goes down. The stronger the credit, the easier it is to sell.
It's just like a loan. You know, the better your credit rating, the better your rate.
For a longer loan, the fees are higher, and again, they decline. So, and this reflects, you know, to do an issue on this side, and it reflects it's harder to do it. I mean, this is even than that.
I need to make I want to make a note to the board. A couple of things.
I didn't hear that.
Excuse me. I'd like to make a note of a couple of things. The first thing is if in fact we do go out and solicit a bond, we're going to have to pay somebody to do it, and the fees are going to be relatively similar.
Right.
Okay, for whoever is the underwriter. That's the first thing that I need to make sure they all know. But what's in front of you right now is not anything that's going to authorize payment at this point. It's going to authorize, and you correct me if I say something wrong, Mr. Coyne, it's going to authorize Mr. Coyne to actually go out there and solicit and see what kind of a market there is for our particular bond. Right. It's going to allow him to go out and speak on the behalf of the village and try to make the best deal that can be made in order to get this bond to do this project. So what's in front of you guys right now, you know, to make a long story short and cut through all the minutia here, is what we're trying to do is give him the authority to speak on the behalf of the village of Broadview in soliciting people to purchase the bond. Correct or incorrect, sir?
Correct. And as a precursor to that, to talk to bond rating agencies and bond insurance companies and bond counsel about how this has to be put together.
How it's going to be put together. So to suffice it to say, there's no dollar amount attached to what we're talking about right this minute. That'll come back before the board at a later date in order to act on it once. Go ahead.
In two steps.
And
more ordinance that come back.
There's more coming. I was getting to it, but that's fine.
And so until
I'm just trying to put it in the simplest terms. You know,
it's just sort of is a bow to the federal rules that say unless you are authorized to act on the village's behalf,
you can't solicit anything for it.
You can't do anything.
I'm sorry. I still want to know what you told Woody.
Oh, I went on the matrix.
Here, she's got it up. I don't have it up.
Okay. And Woody, I showed Woody along this line here that if you have this kind of credit rating, A3, then it's 2.25%. But if the credit rating goes up to A2, then my fee goes down.
All right.
Right. The higher the rating.
The better your credit rating, the lower the rate.
Lower the fee. And then this side of the table is if you do this is for 20-year bonds, and this is for 25-year bonds.
Gotcha. Okay.
So if you go to that side of the table, you start higher and then you go down again. It's the same kind of pattern.
Okay, and that's of the proceeds of the 11 million or of the 10 million?
That's of the face, including the debt service reserve fund, which is over here in that. That's why that label's so long.
Gotcha, thank you. Sorry,
Okay.
I had to know.
Let me do what I normally would do and start with the questions with Trustee Abraham from the right. Trustee Abraham, questions for Mr. Coyne?
No, he answered them already.
Okay, Trustee Benson.
Yes, I wanted to know how you would get paid. If we cannot find an investor, will this company purchase the bond?
We will find investors.
You will find investors. Okay, and if you don't find an investor to buy it,
right.
If you don't,
right.
What will you do?
We will buy it.
You will buy it, and then let's just say you can't sell it on the secondary market. Then what happens?
Then we own it.
Then you own it. Okay, I just want to know if there's any extra fees. That's why I'm asking. There's nothing else that's going to hit the village regarding if you cannot sell it on the secondary market like you do a home. Okay.
Can I piggyback on that?
You can piggyback on anything.
What she's saying, then he still has to come in front of us with an ordinance regarding that, right? If there's a secondary, so it still has to be approved, correct?
Yes.
All right, I just want to make sure. Okay.
This is.
I'm sorry, I don't know. I'm asking.
It's
all right.
You're allowed to work on this.
Okay.
All right.
It doesn't say you can get paid because we have come to an agreement on the bond issue size, the bond issue contractual covenants. You know,
So then, in other words, is there a little bit more negotiability, or once it goes to you as the buyer, I guess, is it more negotiable with you, or how does this work then?
I thought you didn't have no questions.
Well, I sparked them.
She started something, and
I sparked them. I'm sorry. But I don't know, I'm not sorry. I want to know what's going on. I want to make sure I understand. I should not be sorry. So I really don't think you should have a problem answering the questions.
Right.
Okay. So answer.
You have all sorts of opportunities to change this agreement going forward.
Okay.
That's fine.
That's fine.
Anything else, Trustee Benson?
No, thank you, thank you.
Because if you just say, oh, we're not, we stop the process with you, you're in the total position to do that.
I have to say, I do like what you put together here. This is very informative. I liked it. I like how many people you got working with this company. Good packet.
Trustee Harvey?
Okay, here's where all my questions came into place that Trustee Benson actually asked some. How will we find out what our rating is so we'll know how to start looking at the fees? I could care less that we're not paying right now. I still want to know what we should be prepared to pay. So how do we find out the rating?
That's how we'll send you.
A lot of them think the worst possible case is A3 without insurance.
A3 without insurance.
So if you're, because you're going back and forth between how do you keep your fees low and how do you avoid rate increases. So if you really want a high rating and a low fee, then you might be.
Go ahead, tell them.
If you really want a great rating, then just increase your rates a lot. If you want very low interest costs,
Raise the water rates, is what he's saying.
water rates a lot. So you have this balancing act.
Oh.
So if you don't want that, then.
The audience is shaking their head no.
Yeah, I knew they would.
Okay, so wait.
Which is exactly why we scaled it back.
To get a higher bond rating?
You would have to raise your water rates a lot.
Okay.
So I'm not sure you want to go down that path. I'm open to that, but I'm not sure that you guys want to go.
Don't be scared to say it, just say it all, okay? Just say it all.
Yeah, put it out there.
So an A3 is the lowest rating? You answering questions? No, okay. No, I'll give you some.
Which is substantially higher than your general obligation rate, which is how are they going to look at that at the rating agencies in terms of the administration of the city? Are they going to, and part of our challenge is to show them how we improve things in the last couple of years. Because the quality of administration is one of the three factors that determine a rating. The other is willingness to pay, ability to pay.
Okay. I was looking at your background. I'm still kind of torn because I didn't see a lot that were done in Illinois with municipalities. So I'm trying to see what's the difference with how you would do a school versus a municipality with selling a bond.
The chief financial officer for jurisdiction east of here, Chicago.
Okay.
And that was when I was 28 years old.
Last year, okay.
That was the first time that there were they separated the water sewer system. They used to give water sewers away for free, and they instituted a sewer tax onto the water bill when I was there.
Okay, so I'm taking it that you're telling me there is no major difference with how you would sell a bond for a school versus how you sell one for a municipality?
Well, I sold bonds. I was the chief financial of Chicago doing Chicago bonds and Chicago security before I did any school stuff.
Okay.
Schools have a different kind of process than cities have. There's less lawyers involved.
Okay, that's it.
Thank you, Trustee Harvey. Trustee McGriff.
Mr. Coyne, Trustee Hargreaves touched on one of my questions as far as experience. But say again for the audience, I know you mentioned it before, how long have you been doing this?
How long have I been? I have been a public finance banker since 1984, but when I worked for the state, I was advising the legislature on bond ratings. And So I visited Bank Standard & Poor's in New York in 1976 or 7, someplace around there. And then I was the CFO for Chicago, and I went to New York with Goldman Sachs and all those people in 1979 and 1980 to talk to Moody's and Standard & Poor's on how the city could deal with the financial problems that were going on at the time.
So there's no real question about your experience and knowledge of what we're trying to do here, correct?
Right.
That's a long question.
Thank you, Trustee McGuire. Trustee Morris.
How you doing, sir? Tired now.
I've had a very interesting week.
I will get it.
I wasn't supposed to be here, but my father wanted me, so
Oh, wow.
I'm here.
Sorry.
I really don't have any questions for you, but I'm not sure that we understand exactly what it is that we're trying to do here.
Okay, all we're trying to do tonight.
No, let me finish,
okay.
And then you could probably answer. We have been in the realm of doing things too quick around here, and then we get in trouble in the end because we've been putting our foot in our mouth. So what I'm saying is, I don't have anything against you. I don't have anything against the streets getting fixed, because I live out here. I want that. But I don't think that we are ready to open up and start spending money that we don't have. Because I believe that this is going to cost us more than what we want to spend. That's why I'm against it at this point. And it doesn't have anything to do with you or the great plan that they put together. But I just feel like that we can do these things in stages. And I think that when people actually understand what we're doing, then it'll work out a little bit better. So, like I said, it's nothing against you.
I'm not sure what the question was.
It didn't sound like a question.
It sounded like a statement.
It just sounded like a statement.
You know,
Trustee.
in order to have enlightened guidance on what the rate might be or what your cost might be, you need to engage us. Because otherwise we fit into a different category for the SEC. Now we can't buy your bonds. We can't switch forward.
And I hear your concerns, Trustee Morris, but ultimately at the end of the day, for right now, what you got in front of you is just allow him to go out there and solicit to see what he can get. We haven't committed to spending a dime.
No, and you're not legally able to do it.
And we're not able to at this point.
Until we can what?
So the idea, Mr. Morris, is Trustee Morris, is to ascertain whether we're able to get the bond. Can we pay for the bond? And is this a doable and viable option for us? As the presiding board over the village of Broadview, I think we have a responsibility to the residents of Broadview and the businesses in Broadview to do whatever we're supposed to do and whatever we're able to do with the tax dollars that are designed to fix their streets, their sewers, and their water mains. But we can't do that. We can't even get the process started without getting the process started. In other words, you got to do something first, which would be to engage Mr. Coyne's organization to go out and solicit to see if, in fact, he can actually procure a buyer of the bond and at the best rate, at the best rating. So that's what we're here now to discuss. You know, it sounds to me like, based on your comment, is that you think that we're doing something too fast because you think that we won't have the money for it, or that we don't have the money for it, or we'll be unable to pay for it. We're not asking for payment at this time. We're just trying to, it's more of an exploratory, more of an investigation to see where we are, what it's going to cost us, and how we're going to be rated.
And you need at least 2 more meetings.
And we'll have to come back again to actually enact this thing. So we're not spending no money here at this point, at this junction. Does that make sense?
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Let me ask you something. Who in our staff is best qualified to choose the bond writer?
Who's? The bond writer? Or the underwriter?
The underwriter.
I don't know. Who do you think's best qualified?
No, I'm asking. Okay, so how did we get him?
I asked him to come. Okay. I asked him to come because he came highly recommended from a former state senator.
Okay.
And once I checked into his background, I sent him to the meeting. You know, they were actually having meetings before I solicited Mr. Coyne and got him in a secondary meeting because of how the first meeting had went. And so I contacted Baptist and Ames, and I said, you know, I'm gonna send somebody else to come down there and at least enter into the discussions on what we're trying to do. And that's how Mr. Coyne got involved. I mean, if you're wondering where Mr. Coyne came from, like I said, he came highly recommended from a former state senator. And his record pretty much speaks for itself. I mean, do you have a better choice?
No, I wasn't involved in his choice, and I'm the finance chair.
Well, he wasn't. There was no money being spent at the time.
And I'm not the professional, so I understand.
Like I said, he was brought into discussions that had been ongoing for several months, and quite honestly, once he got involved, it enhanced the meetings a great deal. He had a lot of the information, a lot of input that actually helped shape the meetings going forward as related to bonding and what type of particular bonds and what we were able to leverage, how much it was going to be. And at one point in time, the discussion got up to 25 million. That was where they were at when I got in the room, and I directed them to your point, doing the stages to pare it back to somewhere between 8 and 10. Something that we could reasonably do that was not going to impact the water rate payers. So that's how we got involved, and that's how Mr. Coyne got this far. With that being said, Trustee Brown Marino?
I'm curious, who is the former state senator that recommended this gentleman?
I'm sorry, State Representative Ted Leverance.
Ted Leverance?
Leverance.
Leverance?
Yeah, that's his name.
Leverance.
Cool.
And your name is, I'm sorry.
My name is Ray Coyne.
Coyne?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Coyne. To recap what you had said earlier, if we simply sell revenue bonds that are not general obligation, we're looking at possibly nervous lenders because because of the way our water usage is allotted. We also have to maintain a debt service reserve of 10% of proceeds, or what? What was the other factor?
The lesser of 10% of proceeds or maximum annual debt service. The lesser of those things.
And the maximum annual debt service would include all of our bonds, our general obligation, alternate revenue, or just these?
Just the water sewer responsibilities.
Okay.
So, and you issue in 5 years a similar issue that would be affected by the same covenants or contractual obligations. So that's why you have to look at this in not just today, but the future kind of perspective.
Now, the ratings that you have in the fee matrix here range from AA1 to A3. I don't know if you're aware, but our rating without insurance for our village bonds, the existing bonds, is BBB minus.
Right.
How would that impact our ability to get within the A ranges?
Your water and sewer system can be pledged in a way that isn't as challenged. Well, your general obligation situation is pretty challenged, your water sewer situation is not in the same way. You've been, recent years, generating more revenue than you actually spend. So you have some, track record. When you go back a long time, we're not so good in the water sewer fund, but we're trying to get improvement. So because you have enough money to pay all your water costs and your operations and your repairs and some debt service, then people can look at you differently. And in the national market, there's been greater confidence in certain kind of investors that they can get a way better return in buying revenue bonds and in buying general obligation bonds. And especially as the bankruptcy laws start to make people nervous, investor world, you think that a water sewer bond in ways is a safer bond. You can keep the bringing of this village just sort of on the periphery as opposed to the center of the whole transaction, and bring people sort of say, well, this is what it looks like. And the person that does the rating for a lot of the water sewer bonds for Moody's, when she was in high school, she lived 2 blocks south of Burlington, 1 block east of Range Road. So she's familiar with what's here. She was like 32 years old, went to LT, and we talked. And I talked to people in New York, unofficially, about the situation and how to deal with the BBB- situation.
Now, generally speaking, don't revenue bonds that are also general obligation have a lower rate, a lower interest rate, better terms?
Sure, but if you want to contaminate your issue with a BBB- overhang, then that usually the case principle that Westchester did very recently, you're just asking for trouble in my mind.
In what way?
Huh?
In what way?
Well, because if you're invoking a BBB- cover to support this issue, then they have to look at everything that's going on in the village finances in terms of figuring out how to rate this thing. And I think you want to stay away from, in the past, the pension fund problems, how you're working those out over time. If you want to bring that to the center of this thing, because the textbook says, do it, slap in the alternate revenue bond on top of your water sewer, makes it.
Or a general obligation.
You can, it just doesn't, it makes sense for them, but they don't have a different, you have a different back situation. So because you have a different back situation, that which is generally true doesn't seem to be appropriate here. So you got the right theory, the right textbook thing, but this is a highly unusual history here. You've been here and seen things.
Now, a little while ago, you held something up that you said was some sort of agreement, and you were reading from it. In the ordinance, it says that in the best interest of the village and its residents, that the village retain HSEC by letter agreement based on the fee matrix, a copy of which is attached here to as Exhibit A. And that would be this. There is reference to an agreement, but it's not considered an attachment. I haven't seen a copy of this agreement. I also haven't seen whatever presentation package Trustee Benson held up a little while ago.
That was not a long time ago.
That was got a long time ago.
How long is a long time ago?
It's got to be about a month.
It says
February 27th.
Yeah, it's got to be a month. It's got to be a month.
So you do have a copy of it? Okay, once again, we're playing keep away. I mean, this is just ridiculous.
We stuck them in all the boxes
Yeah. He was here.
We sent the boxes ourselves, they went in all boxes.
He was here.
I have not received a copy of that. No.
There's a whole, we went boom,
Right.
boom, 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 all the way down.
I'm the last one on the bottom, but I have not received a copy of this either. But I mean, and I don't doubt, you know, I'm not saying that you were doing something, but I am saying that this is the way that this entire process is being treated. So there is an agreement letter of some sort that the rest of the board has been able to review. Now, let me ask you this. If we were to, could we contract with more than one underwriter and ask them each to, because we have another underwriter we've been working with for many, many years, and there are plenty of other underwriters out there. Could we contract with more than one underwriter and then have each of them bring us their proposals? So that we would have more than one person's input to review and making decisions?
Well, in ways, what we do is design a financial house. We're like a financial architect, and then we price it. And in the process, we're talking to like functional equivalent of judges. So it would complicate the message for an issuer that needs to have a clear message going out to the world. If this were a different situation where your general obligation rating was, you know, in the A range to begin with, then what you're proposing might be the good public relations thing to do. But when you're a challenged issuer, then trying to do this is a very delicate operation, and you don't want to be showing the same sets of investors get different slants from two different people. That's probably not the best thing to do.
Agreed.
Well, that may make your job and the other underwriters' jobs more difficult, but I would think that it would be better for the board and the village to have a couple of different options to look at.
The sort of textbook on how to do this to this situation, and you have some underlying history that says the textbook is going to have some extra chapters in it.
Can I ask you a question on that? Sure. If I'm out to get a car loan, and I have ZZZ credit, and the car dealer is actually doing a check on my credit. That's going to pull my credit rating down a little bit. But if I have someone else looking at this bad credit, and they see everyone looking at this bad credit, isn't that going to make them more leery to give me a loan?
When there are credit inquiries, they're sort of
negative impact, right?
Half-hearted, that aren't official, that you can't deliver, it just sort of makes the lending world nervous.
Right, and that's exactly what we've been doing with ourselves and bringing another Mr. Coyne into the picture, correct?
I don't think you
so no, we couldn't
position anybody to represent you on water sewer at the moment.
I say that's a bad scenario, because when you go buy a car, they sending your credit to whoever gonna buy that loan. 1,000 people, they don't care. They send out to everybody, just like Dave said, you should get 3 home estimates when you out.
All I know is that when
getting some work did.
A AA1 credit, I got a lot more people wanting to look at it than a AA3, and when you get to A1, and when you get to A1, then
you know what?
The people in the bond business, when they see this, they look up on Bloomberg and they see immediately that BBI rating.
Hold it up, Mr. Coyne.
Give them comfort that despite that, this can still work.
Not to interrupt you, I just need to make a point of order, because the trustee that had the floor was Trustee Marino.
these two gentlemen interrupted, you know, out of order. And Ms. Marino needs to continue her line of questioning or whatever it is that because she needs to get some answers. Each one of these other gentlemen have already had an opportunity to ask you questions. I'd like Ms. Trustee Marino to finish so that we can, you know, kind of wrap this up because it's already 20 minutes to 10.
My apologies, Mayor.
Okay, and I apologize. Now that I'm seeing what this is, I did receive this by email, you know, this booklet, and which was basically, it was described as a proposal, but basically it was a description of who you are, what kind of services you provide, and then 3/4 of this book are lists of bond sales that you've been involved in.
And there was the matrix in there?
Yeah.
So it's, you know, it's like, we're not sure what the bond issue is going to look like, we're not sure what the constraints are, we're not sure what the covenants are going to be, we're not sure what the rating is. So in each of those eventualities, here's a deed structure.
Now, when I did first see that we were looking at the possibility of hiring a new underwriter and saw this online, the first thing I did was call our finance director, Jan Baptiste, and at the time you told me that you really weren't sure what was going on with this. I'd really like to know what your thoughts are about this, and if you have any questions that haven't been answered by this gentleman. I'm sorry. I would much rather have done this in another way, but this is, you know, what I've got to work with.
Actually, Ms. Baptiste is not the person who's presenting right now. You should be directing your questions to Mr. Coyne at this point in time.
Mr. Coyne, have you met with our finance director, Jan Baptiste?
I met with her for, what, 55 minutes today? And how long, last Thursday?
About 2 hours.
And several times before that?
We said we just.
So we met, what, maybe 10 hours together?
Now you stretch.
A lot of time.
I don't know, 8, 6, 8. Fair amount of time.
Because this was 2 weeks ago when I, you know, when this was on the agenda that I asked Ms. Baptiste about, you know, what her thoughts were and what she knew about it.
And shortly after you guys talked, I was talking to her in the car, she said one of the trustees asked a bunch of questions, and I assumed it was you. So.
Yeah, after you talked to me, that's when I became an introduction. And I did share that. A trustee asked me about you. You know I am.
Mr. Coyne, have you done any type of workup to get an idea of what our debt service payments would be if we were to sell 10 million in bonds and under different scenarios?
I did. And I shared that with her. Yeah, I can do that. I had the electronic version, but here's. I was told work up 8, 10, 12, whatever that were, and then this is kind of show that the costs don't move up linearly in every instance. They asked for that on Thursday, I sent it here on Friday.
Who asked you for that?
What?
You did. That's correct.
What was the question?
I asked him for that work up in Jan's office because I knew the question was going to come up.
And knowing the question would come up, I'm surprised that you didn't think to share it with anybody.
I didn't have the answer to the question. I had to get him to work it up.
So what I'm seeing here is what we're being asked to contemplate, the potential here for a sale of 8 million, we would be committing ourselves to an annual debt service of $684,000. For the 12 million, we would be committing ourselves to an annual debt service of just over $1 million, $1,023,000. I don't have the numbers here in front of me, but as I recall, last year, didn't we project an annual excess of just over $1 million, and then went about $400,000 over budget, so we actually showed an actual excess of about 600,000.
Something like that. On the average for the last 6 years, we've been averaging about 800,000. Is that what you asked? We just started this now.
Right, okay. So, and right in the middle of this too, and this is for a, with a final maturity in 2032, and this, so that's a 20-year issue. So for 20 years, we would be, in order to sell 10 million in bonds, we're projecting we would be committing ourselves to 20 years of debt service of $850,000 a year. Okay, in that...
You're not committing yourself to that tonight.
No, I understand, but I'm trying to get an idea of what kind of things we can look forward to, you know, with this. That would take care of all of our excess on an average basis of what we've been seeing in the water fund at the current rates. Now, stop me if I'm wrong, but if we are simply treating...
but you get to count your depreciation as, this depreciation is an expense but not an expenditure, then your depreciation is something that you provide a cap to make additional debt service payments. And when you do improvements, then your repairs and emergency repairs costs should go down too. You do things and then you don't need to repair it.
Right.
So you might be in better shape operationally.
But what we're talking about in terms of making improvements over the first 2 years are just those items that are in red and the blue. So we have very little of our village that we're actually taking care of. And, you know, I understand what you're saying. If we replace our infrastructure, we're not going to have as many repairs. But the repairs that we're projecting with these funds take care of very little of the village, and actually not even some of the worst flooding, when it comes to the sewer, some of the worst flooding problems.
Well, but if you want to do a bigger project, you can do a bigger project.
I got to start somewhere.
That's what I just wrote. That's what I just wrote.
Well,
I just wrote that.
We're just
in the square.
You want to do every street?
Just wrote that.
Better for you, right?
That's fine.
You don't want that.
Percentage goes down.
no, but the point I was making, I understand that. The point I was making is that when you're saying that if we make these improvements, we'll have fewer repairs be made in the future, I'm saying we're talking about repairing very little, a small percentage of the village with these funds. Now, what I was starting to ask you, and I want to be sure I understand this and that everyone here understands this, if we were to commit ourselves, for example, let's just look at one of the scenario here, with a $10 million bond sale to annual debt service of just over $850,000 a year. If we don't have an excess or enough in our from the proceeds of our water and sewer fees in order to make that debt service, because we have some other repairs that need to be done or something else that's come up, then we have to raise water rates to cover this. We're committed to raising the water rates because it's only revenue bonds.
Right.
We are committed to raising our water rates to whatever we need to in order to repay this over the next 20 years.
Correct. But one of the components of this is this, if you're going to have a debt service reserve that's funded up front. And so that'll help in case you have a shortfall.
But then we have to replace the money in the debt service reserve.
Right.
Right, so even if we draw from that to make the actual payment, we're still obligated to increase rates in order to replenish that, as well as continue to cover our expenses.
The city of Chicago is going to be raising your cost of water every year, so your rates are going to be changing anyway.
Well, they certainly will be if we commit ourselves to this. Certainly would be. Let me just take a quick look at this again. If these are strictly revenue bonds based on our water and sewer revenue, are they subject to a backdoor referendum?
Right.
Yes, they are. Okay. You said that you thought that the worst case, as far as our rating, would be the A3. Is it possible we would go lower than A3?
It's possible, but...
If we were to go lower than A3, do you think it would still be feasible to try and sell these bonds? Or would we need to look at some other possibilities?
It depends on how much below A3.
And you said...
If you're minus, then, I guess.
And you said that Moody's would be doing the rating.
Well, I mean, I'm just saying Moody's is one possible.
Okay, because S&P has been doing our ratings all along.
S&P's been doing the general obligation.
Right.
So this is a new obligation.
So this is another way to just show them what we want them to see without them seeing the condition of the village?
They will look at the entire village, but their focus, because with the general obligation, your repayment promise is predicated on everything the village has and everything the village owes already, as opposed to just the water and sewer, which has been, revenue's been greater than expenses most years.
Well, just over the last couple of years. Right.
No,
just over the last few.
The last few years, you have revenue greater than expenditure. So you got a track record here that's different than over there. You don't have any bonds outstanding. You had one 10 years ago, you had no outstanding. And got repaid. So it changes the focus, changes the promise, changes the covenants. But yeah, no. It's customary to promise that you will make sure the rates are enough to pay the bills.
Now, once we've obligated ourselves to a sale of 10 million in bonds and these type of repayment terms, this, if I understand correctly, the idea is that the proceeds of the bond sale would be used to satisfy the 5-year plan. I mean, that was the basis behind this, correct?
Yeah.
In the event that we proceed with this and come year 2 or 3 or at whatever point, we find ourselves needing to take on some other major project in terms of our infrastructure, our water and sewer infrastructure. What do you think the possibilities would be in terms of being able to bond for that new emergency project?
If you write the right contracts and depends on what you do with the rates, depends on how much you do. If in the first issue you only go out 20 years and you potentially go out 25, even 2 years from now, there's only 18 years left, and you've got 2 to 7 years of potential extension. But it depends on the size of the emergency project. If it's a big enough emergency project, then you need to do a rate adjustment. You can have an annual rate adjustment anyway because of the city.
And by rate adjustment, you mean the water rates that we're charging for selling water?
Oh, that's your source of revenue. And the sewers are the cost too. The water is so much larger that we just focus on that. We assume the sewer will stay the same.
Okay. That's all the questions I came here prepared with this evening. One other thing. I still have not, including in the package that was handed out before, I still have not seen a copy of the agreement that we're supposed to be, that we're being asked to vote on.
We just passed it.
Just pass it down there.
It's just simple, it looks like a simple engagement letter that...
Oh, this?
Yeah. It's a letter agreement similar to the one provided by most of our vendors.
And this letter is dated March 19th. Okay. I'd like to be given a moment to be able to read this, since this is the first I'm seeing it.
Okay, go ahead on and read. I just wanted to make a couple of points for everyone in the room. Unusual circumstances and unusual conditions call for extraordinary measures. You got to do some things outside the box that are not normal. What we're attempting to do here is to repair the streets, repair the water mains, repair the sewer lines. The traditional way to do it is cost prohibitive because of a BBB- rating that we've had for a little while here in the village of Broadview. It just won't work. It's not going to happen. So we're limited in what we can do and how we can fund this. And so we're limited to try to sell the water bonds through Mr. Coyne's efforts. Historical data was relied on as relates to the excess revenue in the water fund in order to even consider doing this. So it's not like we won't be able to fund it, so to speak, and I don't want you all to be alarmed that we're going to go out and seek out a bond and we can't pay for it. We're going to turn around and come back and backdoor you and tell you we need more money because of, you know, whatever. That's not the goal. If in fact the historical data had yielded a different number, then we would be having another conversation. Suffice it to say, they came in with a $25 million project, and for the exact reasons that have been discussed before you all tonight is the reason why I had them scale it back to somewhere between 8 and 10, which is about where the water fund can fund it, because that's where we're limited to in our revenue. And there really is no other way that I can see, unless somebody's got some better idea than I do on where we're going to come up with funds to repair streets that sorely need replacing, replace water mains that sorely need replacing, and replace sewers that sorely need replacing. These things are outdated and they're just falling apart. You know, huh? No. So with that being said, Mr. Coyne, have you had experience with other towns that have had, you know, financial challenges, have had, you know, some bad ratings, and were you able to procure the issuance of bonds for them? Were you able to successfully assist those towns?
When I was doing the issue for Chicago, the Board of Ed had rolled over without the bankers understanding what they were doing, their obligations. So basically, the world sort of said, we're not sure we want to lend you any money at all. And we were able to convince them that we were safe credit, the securities got okay. Well, that was my sort of introduction to challenge credits. They had the school finance authority created right at that time. There was all sorts of clouds of suspicion on anything that was associated with Chicago at that time.
Any other suburban towns or municipalities or other schools?
Fort Heights has $50 million in EAD, and most of it's two companies that just evaporate when we were able to get them money. I work on an ongoing basis with a school district called Broadview, which is on the state's watch list, and we've been able to get that money, get that money. S&P thinks they're A-, and the state thinks they deserve to be on the watch list. But I made the financial person for the district ready to make a presentation, and we made the presentation, and S&P thought, you're A-, you're fine.
Okay.
So those are examples of challenged entities.
So, you know, for me, we've got to start somewhere. The travesty here would be to do nothing at all. If we know for sure that we need replacing water mains, and we know that we need to replace sewers, and we know we need to replace the roads, the absolute worst thing that we can do is nothing. That's my opinion. You know, for us to sit here and sit on our hands and do nothing would be a disservice to the taxpayers, and that's where I'm at. Anybody else have anything for Mr. Coyne? Mr. Coyne, thank you for your presentation. I appreciate you standing before us and going through the grinder. Ms. Marino, have you finished reading?
Actually, when you say that the worst thing we can do is to do nothing, that was part of the argument that was made when Broadview sold the 11 million in bonds back in fiscal year 2004. And what we did was burden ourselves with an enormous amount of debt, requiring between $2 and $3 million a year in debt service.
Yeah, but that wasn't the same because it wasn't for this type of project. What they borrowed that money for, what they got that money for, they didn't even use it for what they got it for. And that's why they're in the position they're in. It wasn't because of the issue of the bonds. It wasn't because they got the money. It was because once they got the money, the decisions that they made with the money led us to where we are today. And I don't think that this board is going to do that. You know, to do nothing and let the infrastructure crumble in front of you is again, the worst thing you can do. And you're comparing apples to oranges if you're comparing it to the 2004 issue. You can't compare them, they're not the same. And it's not the same people doing it. It's not the same municipality, it's not the same board. Conditions are different, situations and times are different. The village was actually healthy back then. That's why they got the 11 million in the first place.
The parallel that I do see between that and here is that at that time, the board, and I've spoken with a number of the people that were on the board at the time, at that time the board was making decisions without really understanding what it was that they were committing us to, without careful consideration, and with very little information being shared with the public about what the village was being committed to. And that is the parallel that I was making with this.
So you're saying that we're concealing information?
Well,
I mean, this is about as public as it's going to get.
That's the way you just phrased it.
No, that's the way you phrased it.
No, what
are you insulting us?
You said you're drawing a parallel. You're drawing a parallel because you're saying that people didn't know what they were doing and they weren't giving information. You guys have been given packets. You got the emails back in February. The stuff came to all of you guys. You guys got these iPads. There's no reason that you don't have the information. Mr. Coyne himself was here, put the stuff in your boxes. I'm aware of that. So you can't say that they were hiding stuff from you.
No, actually what I received in February was this. The actual agreement was just handed to me now. I had tried to get the information as it was being made, as we were getting it, with the street survey and other information. We've had all these meetings that the chairman of Water, Drainage, and Health has not been part of. Our finance chair said that he was not privy to the meetings and the information that was going on regarding bonds. So call it what you will. You're the one who chose that word, but I'm saying over and over and over again with everything we've discussed here this evening, yes, it has been, it's been a very sick game of keep-away. And I'm extremely concerned about the information that, certainly the lack of information that I've had. If you're saying that the rest of the board has had this information, then I've got a problem with that. But that seems to be an acceptable practice. So.
Okay. Well.
But the rest of this board's going to do what you want. You know, what can I say?
Naturally, you think that, because we don't always agree, but that's neither here nor there. And to be quite honest, I attempted to reach Mr. Morris myself. I was unable to reach Mr. Morris for whatever reason. But that's not the issue.
Incidentally, President Jones, among the things that I've not been able to get, I sent you an email asking you for a copy of that recording that you talked about. And I never got so much as a courtesy of a response from you.
I never saw the email. Just like you never got the report.
No, I said once I realized what this report was, yes, I did get it.
And when did you send me the email?
Last week.
Oh, last week. So you got the report last week, not last night?
No. The report...
So you knew about this 2 weeks ago, right? Because you started calling Jan 2 weeks ago.
What I knew about was what I received.
We can sit here and debate this, you know.
No, what was held up with
we can sit here and debate this all night.
Which was simply a glorified resume for Mr. Coyne.
Okay.
At that time, yes, I contacted Jan and, I'm sorry, Ms. Baptiste, who said that she was not privy to...
So earlier tonight you said you just got the information last night at 6 o'clock.
Yes.
But you knew about it 2 weeks ago to call Ms. Baptiste.
Mr. President, you're talking about two different things.
It's all tied in together.
What I received last night at 6 o'clock was the information about the capital projects plan. And what we're talking about now are the bonds.
Okay. So you knew about the bond issue and all this other stuff, Mr. Coyne, 2 weeks ago?
No, what I knew 2 weeks ago is that you wanted to sell bonds. I had no idea what the amount of the bonds was going to be, anything about terms, nothing whatsoever. I knew nothing about what our plan was in terms of capital projects. When I tried to learn about it, I've been shut down repeatedly.
That's absolutely amazing.
No, it is amazing.
It's absolutely amazing.
It is amazing. And I've been trying since November when our Mr. Goomis told me that they had finished the streets report. And he said that he was told by Mr. Ames not to give me a copy of it. And I've been
that's hearsay, and I'm not getting ready. I'm not getting ready to get into that. That's hearsay. Listen, we're way off of the scope of things. No, point of order, madam. Point of order. You know what? Point of order. Point of order.
There's a point of order here. The chairman runs the meeting.
And I'm trying to tell him.
He's been running it. He will run it, and people will talk in order based on the rules of procedure here. The chairman runs the meeting. No one else runs the meeting. That being said, Mr. Mayor.
Now, we finished with Mr. Coyne. There's a motion on the floor, and we need to get to the motion. It's after 10 o'clock. We've been holding the residents hostage here, grilling Mr. Coyne about information that's been available to the trustees for a period of time. I see that Trustee Hargreaves has exited the meeting. She must have had an emergency or something, so she left. So, with that being said, Ms. Deputy Clerk, I'll entertain a roll call, please.
Can we make a superseding motion to table it?
Second.
You're going to motion to table it?
Those two.
What two?
Those two down there.
It's been properly motioned to table the item. Properly motioned by Trustee Woody Morris and properly second by
Benson.
Trustee Benson. Who made the motion, the original motion?
I got it wrote down.
Because that motion needs to be...
I did. It was a motion by Trustee
McGreer
And Abraham.
It's a superseding motion.
So do I have any questions or comments about this? Starting with Trustee
Point of order, when a motion is made to table, there is not supposed to be discussion.
That is accurate.
Pardon?
That is
accurate. In favor of the table?
Aye.
No, actually, let's do it.
Roll call? Roll call.
Trustee Abraham?
No.
Trustee
Yes.
Benson?
Yes.
Trustee McGreer?
No.
Trustee Morris?
Yes.
Trustee Marino?
Yes.
So that's, what, 3 to 2?
That's not enough.
That's a superseding motion. So the item will be tabled till the next board meeting. Madam Clerk.
Item number 9, application for the board expense funds. We have none. Committee report.
Hold on, you're missing that. Yeah.
It's item C.
It should be item C.
We skipped around. It's C. Engineering contract.
I'm sorry.
No.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Item number 8C, under new business. Consideration of an ordinance authorizing and approving the execution of an agreement for the engineer work regarding the 2012 capital improvement program for the village of Broadview, County, Cook State of Illinois.
Motion to table.
Second.
Motion by Trustee Morris and second by Trustee Brown Marino to table this item. All in favor? Any questions or comments? All in favor?
Discussion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Actually, why don't we do a roll call?
Roll call.
Trustee Abraham?
No.
Trustee Benson?
I have to abstain this one.
Trustee McGreer?
No.
Trustee Morris?
Yes.
Trustee Brown Marino?
Yes.
And I'm gonna motion
President Jones?
yeah, because I'm gonna have to go along because they're joined, so we're gonna have to just hold off until the next board meeting. We can't do one without the other. We need is all. It doesn't make any sense to make a move on the engineering without being able to fund it. So we're just gonna table this until the next board meeting.
Item number 9. Application for the authority to expand funds. We have none. Committee reports, building and public property, Trustee Abraham.
Yes, good evening, residents. Sorry about the late meeting going on. I do have a few things from the library. They're having a new facilities planning committee that's been formed, and they've been having meetings regarding the expansion and also the possibility of a new location. They do have a meeting this Thursday on March 22nd. The time is now at 6:30. They'll also have one on Tuesday, March 27th at 5 p.m. Also, we received notice at our building department a letter that the senior exemption freeze, that deadline is March 28th. From the Office of the Collector, vehicle stickers are now on sale. Again, the rates were not increased. Also, on a side note, I do want to thank Director Upshaw and Director Ames for their continuance of being focused on our streets, our business district, and our neighborhoods to be cleaner and more attractive and better maintained. Obviously, they understand the physical appearance of our community is very important to us and to our families here, and to also to promote our businesses. So again, I want to thank these two gentlemen that truly are focused and are maintaining the public appearance of the village. Also, on another note, as I close here tonight, residents, you know, I take this position here very seriously, okay? So when I make decisions, it's because I've done the research, I've talked to the people that are involved. I don't like the innuendos or the insinuations of my intelligence or lack of, okay? I am a college graduate, I'm an executive businesswoman, and I have 3 resumes. You could look at my community involvement, you can look at how I served this village over the last, since 1993, and economic development that I've promoted, being the chairman of the zoning board. You can look at my business as far as my degrees and positions I've held in management, okay? I also have a coaching, I coach kids from grade school through college. So I have 3 resumes. So for the person that doesn't say or says they do the research, pick a resume and we'll have a discussion. But I'm not gonna be insulted up here and said that I don't know what I'm doing or I'm not smart enough, okay? I've met with pretty much every department head, okay, to get my information so I can make a decision for the future of this village. I am a lifelong resident. My family's been here since 1957. I still have that original house. So to sit here and say I don't know about this community, you're wrong. Okay? So I do take this position that I was elected for by the people. My decisions are based on the future. I have a daughter here that I want her to live here. My nephew still lives here, so you can see my family has been here. So we're on 3rd generation. So I'm just saying, I take this seriously. So I do my research. That's my report, Mayor.
Thank you, Trustee Abraham.
Our next committee report, Business Committee, Trustee Benson.
Hi everyone, I'm sorry it's so late. I actually have a long list of things to go over, but I'm going to shorten it because everybody has left. I mean, my goodness. But for the 2 that I see here in the back that volunteered to do the economic development, I got enough people for that now, so I'm getting ready to contact you so we can get something set up for when we're going to have our open meeting, okay? So as long as you're good with that. The next thing I want to say is everyone, Judy Hartford had to leave. Her grandmother passed away, so please keep her in your prayers. The funeral service is tomorrow, so I was very shocked she was even here tonight because she's traveling all the way out to Indiana, and I'm sure that's probably where she just went when she left. So we're going to keep her in our prayers. And let's see, what else am I going to skip on here? I got a letter from, let me just thank Dave Upshaw and Scott Carlson for working very well with the businesses. MPC sent a long letter. I'm not going to read it now. I'll read it the next board meeting. But they have been working with them very well, and that business is coming along very well. And then I was going to make reference to the lady, Ms. Lyles, had said was losing her home. But you know what, I'm just gonna make a quick comment regarding some of the things Judy Brown Moreno said, and I'm piggybacking off of her. I am not gonna list my resume, however, I got a great one, and I can make up several ones, but I got a great resume. I am a good person. I try my best to do the best things up here, and I don't make these decisions just for myself. I'm making these decisions for the residents, the people who elected me, and I'm glad that they did, because I'm doing my best up here. When I see, I don't just have one person that has concerns, but I got 2 people up here that have concerns. I got no problem with tabling it, as you saw we just did up here. But let me tell you this, I actually had no problem with what I had tabled. None whatsoever. I'm ready to approve it. I tabled it because of the people down there. Those are the only people I tabled it for, and I'm really upset that they would say that I am a rubber stamp, because that's what she was implying. She insulted me so bad that it really hurts, and I don't appreciate being insulted in this form when I do all I can to make sure that this board know what they're doing. And these 2 got a problem, fine, I'll table it. But when it comes back up, I'm for it, I'm approving it. So research, get your research done, and then we can get this together. So that really bothered me what she said, and I don't appreciate it at all, because I really do try to do my best. I've had these business license meetings several times before. I did not have attendance. Then I got people that didn't even come to the meeting saying, Nicole, have them again, have them again. So what am I doing? I'm having them again. So all I'm trying to say is that I do my best up here, and I really don't appreciate the comments. And hopefully when this comes back up, we will get it approved, because this is much needed in the village, all right? So I'm sorry, I'm getting a little emotional. So I'm gonna let that go, and my report is complete.
Thank you, Trustee Benson.
Is anyone prepared to do trustee Harper report? Our next committee report is Fire, Police, and Civil Service.
For Trustee Hargret, last week, myself and her have been keeping up communication and providing programs for our seniors, such as information regarding the village. Last week, Trustee Hargret, who's the community liaison with ComEd for the village, was able to secure a presentation on energy-saving programs and ideas, as well as what the new deregulation is with these companies out there. So ComEd came to visit seniors, put them at ease on some of the things that was going on with the state of Illinois as they go out to bid for energy contracts later on in the next few months. They also taught them some things they can do at home to save energy. So that's the end of her report.
Thank you, Trustee Abraham.
Our next committee report is Street Sidewalks and Alley. Trustee McGrath.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Board of Trustees, and audience. I didn't have much of a report until some of the things tonight I heard disturbed me as well. And while I'm not going to get emotional about it, I will say that I cannot believe that the viewers in the audience and the people that are in earshotting distance from us can actually listen to us up here and believe that just because one trustee is ill-prepared or misinformed or does not understand budget information or construction, etc., that you would put us all in that same boat. I, again, will put my resume against anyone's as well. I deal with budgets every day. I deal with construction every day. I deal with about the same amount of people that reside in Broadview on a daily basis in my profession. And again, I've done this not just this year. I am employed, by the way, and I do this every day. I cannot believe that you can see a parallel of our previous board and this board, which is making strides, as you'll see in our next newsletter that comes out, over the past 3 years, all that we have accomplished and our direction that we're going. You cannot compare the two. And I think the educated residents are the ones that really see what's going on, as opposed to the ones that hear something that may sound good one day by someone that may sound intelligent, but doesn't actually prepare and doesn't actually really have factual information. I would think that that gets over quick, and that we would rely on our educated residents to know that we're up here making the best decision for you. And we will continue to do so as long as you have us. Mr. Mayor, that concludes my report.
Thank you, Trustee McGrath.
Our next committee report is Finance Committee, Trustee Morris.
Good evening, all that's left. I just have one thing I want to say. We don't have to agree with everything that comes up here. You know, so I don't know, you know, we get upset and, you know, Judy, she doesn't bother me. You know, she got her own mind. You know, she want us, so we listen to whatever she say and we move on. But I'm not educated. I don't have a college degree. I don't have all that. I'm just a trustee and I work for CTA. That's it. And I try to use my own brain to try to figure this stuff out. And like I said in the last meeting, the worst thing that we can do is table something. That's not the worst thing we can do. The worst thing we can do is just kill it and it not be nothing. But to table it is to say, let me understand it a little more. I haven't got a chance to talk to Mr. Ames, but I guess that's my fault because I got other stuff that I have to do and I didn't put the village work first. So I'm sorry for that. But if I don't understand it, then I can't ride with it. Because then once I stamp it, it's over with, it's done. And then I heard Ms. Nicole ask him, well, you know what if it goes over 10 million? And he didn't answer her. Like, okay, if it does go over that, then I don't want something that we don't know how much it's gonna be. That's just me. I live out here too. My taxes double too. So I feel like if the streets need to be fixed, I want them fixed. My basement flooded too. But I just want to try to make a rational decision. We don't have to make it today. We get the paperwork yesterday, we make it today. He sent me the stuff like 3 weeks ago. I won't sit here and lie. I read it, I reread it, but I still didn't understand. I called Jan, Miss Baptist, me and her talked for a minute. But I'm trying to do all that in between me being a family man, working, but I do have the village best interest at heart. So I'm sorry that we couldn't approve something that I don't understand. I just won't do it. That ends my report.
Thank you. Our next committee report is Law and Regs to Hemp, Trustee Brown and Reno.
My comment earlier about making decisions without having the information was based on the idea that assuming that all of the board members are being treated the same and all board members are given the same information at the same time. If I'm incorrect on that and other trustees have had more time to review the material and are more comfortable with their decisions for that reason, then obviously that comment was not appropriate. I was also expressing frustration that even after specifically asking for time to review the capital projects plan, it was voted in. And I do appreciate that Trustee Benson, your second and your vote to table the underwriter question. I appreciate it very, very much to be given the opportunity to review this and look at some other numbers. I wish we would have had the same opportunity with the capital projects plan. Having said that, I don't think there's a person in this room that has had more personal attacks, personal insults thrown at them than me.
Oh my gosh.
No.
I wonder why.
So
that's not true, Ms. Brown.
At any rate, I also apologize to the people who are here and the people who've been watching. I thank you for staying this late and participating in this, whether here this evening or through the tape. This is the reason that I was saying I thought it would be more appropriate to handle the discussion and questions about the capital projects plan and how to pay for it in a committee setting. So thank you for staying this evening, and with that I'll close.
Our next report, Village Clerk, I have no report. Our next report is the Village President.
There's a lot that I could be saying, but let me start by first saying this. I gave the trustees a lot of latitude tonight because there was a lot of money at stake. there was a huge project that was at stake. So when they were questioning the projects and the presentations, I allowed them a lot of free rein to have a lot of dialogue to get the information that they claimed they didn't have. Capital improvements are an absolute positive necessity for this town. There's no two ways about it. There's no way of dodging it or getting around it. It's something that must be done. The question is how are we going to do it, and when are we going to do it? But because if we don't do it, we're going to have even larger problems for the residents. There will potentially be more flooding and more other issues going on. There will continue to be water main repairs that we continue to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on every year. So we've got to do something to stem that, stop the bleeding. It was our intention, at least my intention, in going through this process to give us the best opportunity to at least get started on the fixing and the reparations of the village of Broadview. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. There was a question about, well, what happens if it goes over 10 million? Well, my answer to that question is quite simply this: it's going to be based on the value of the bond, whatever the bond comes up in. And that's the reason why we made the 5-year plan flexible and more of a living entity, so that we can either add or subtract as is needed. So whatever's funded is what we're going to do. And so the thought process or the notion that it would go over the amount of money is absolutely incorrect. So what we had to do is make discretionary decisions up here, and the discretion was used when I had them, tasked them with going back and scaling the project down from 25 million to a project of 8 to 10 million based on the revenues at hand. The issues with the board up here and their personal bias, you know, we've got a myriad of issues on our board because people are on different sides of the fence politically. I personally have been attacked to the degree that people tried to get me fired from my job. They've called the news media on me and had them come and question me. They've had people follow me around and put me on camera. Everybody knows who did it. Listen, I've had people follow me. I've had an inspection from the Office of the Inspector General because somebody made an accusation against me that was absolutely untrue. And to compare this board with boards of the past, you know, from 2004 or any other time, on situations that are not even similar, they're not even remotely related in that respect, is a travesty. To make accusations and to make innuendos and comments that are derogatory, detrimental, and quite honestly just downright rude and wrong is something that's entirely inappropriate for a board meeting. I'm actually ashamed for the board for the actions that you guys witnessed tonight. When things come in front of us, we should address what's on our agenda, stay with what's on the agenda, and keep personal out of it. Making accusations and comments are not necessary. They're an unneeded distraction for everybody, and it causes a lot of people a lot of angst. And it's unfortunate that we're at the stage that we're at today because one trustee felt slighted and got upset because they felt they weren't in the loop. Another trustee decided, or at least claims, that they didn't have the information, so that was their reason for being where they were at. Now I'm gonna digress. I'm gonna get off my soapbox. I'm gonna go back to a couple of things that happened earlier in tonight's meeting. The so-called bombs that are made with the water bottles. They would probably typically be found at this stage somewhere in open areas near schools and things like that, not far from schools, because those are the kids that are creating them at this point, to our knowledge. Somebody asked about putting the community outreach things that the chief has on video. We're not going to do that. We're not going to do that quite simply because people will be reluctant to give information to the police if they're on camera. If their face and their name or their address or information about them is put on camera and broadcast to the public, they would be reluctant to divulge what could be sensitive and critical information that would help the police apprehend a criminal or suspect. So it would be the absolute wrong thing to do to put one of the residents in that type of danger by putting them on a televised, in a televised situation. That's all I have for tonight. I most sincerely apologize to you all for what you witnessed tonight here in tonight's board meeting.
With that being said, we're going to bypass the executive session tonight, Madam Clerk, and I'll entertain a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting.
I make a motion that we adjourn.
Second.
Probably motion by Trustee Abraham, probably second by Trustee Benson to adjourn.